What's up, people? Welcome to a brand new episode of Wrestle Update. I'm your host, Dylan Fox, and thankfully, we are back. First and foremost, joining me, the person that I love the most right now, Nello. You have been sick. We were worried about you. How are you feeling now?
Did you say favorite person right now? Is it like the AEW rankings that could just be taken out?
No, I would never take you out. Right now and always.
I like check back next week and Spadoosh is in front of me.
No, I can assure you of that. Although he did help with the Chris Brooks interview. He was a big part of that. So shout out to Spadoosh. We will give him his props. But no, like I said, I told you on the last episode and everything, I feel like we're like the magic duo right now because Wrestle Update has helped, and specifically not just Wrestle Update, but you coming on Wrestle Update actually revitalized my passion pretty much for wrestling. It was a crazy time, and then you just came in from like an angel from the heavens, helping me out, doing some big things, and now even when we're sick, but like I said, we would have done a show earlier, but you were sick, more or less. So there's a long way around this whole deal.
Yeah, no, feeling much better now. Thank you so much for your patience. Like it took me almost 5 days to watch All Out, which maybe was the best way to digest a show that long.
Yeah, of All Out.
Yeah, I got it all done. I watched it. I'm very excited to chat it all.
Oh, absolutely. And you've got a new setup in your office, too. I saw you post on Twitter.
Yep. Big love and respect to my new ICW No Holds Barred American Deathmatch Championship and signed and authenticated Hoodfoot poster.
Shout out to Hoodfoot.
Shout out to Hoodfoot. I love him.
Wherever you are, just know that you've got supporters. You've got respectors on this show. I'm still rocking the same lineup. I've got one end, we've got Ultimo Guerrero's mask that I have, and on the other end, Piplup. And we will not forget about Piplup.
Piplup, that's right.
That's right. And you said you had Squirtle. Squirtle been replaced in your lineup by Hoodfoot.
So Squirtle, I put, yes, in a different area of my room now. So I guess, yeah, my ranking system, Hoodfoot has gone over Squirtle. But it's because I kind of just I created like the whole thing to be just a wrestling corner. Like I've got my pro wrestling magazine covers, with like the Shiozaki I Am Noah, then him coming back with Nakajima, my little pair there. I have so many fucking keychains of just like New Japan pro wrestlers. So those are all hanging out. But yeah, it's a good time in the office corner.
Good, but rest in peace, Squirtle, being an unofficial member of the Wrestle Update. He's still a member in our hearts, though. Okay, you may be able to move him around, but you can't get rid of him in my heart. And Piplup is not going anywhere. Piplup is staying right here, where we need him. So he's keeping things in check in case any trouble pops off. Because we do know if there's somebody with enemies around here, I think everybody loves you pretty much. But I have many enemies. Maybe from the past. Maybe I've turned over a new leaf, and some people have changed their opinion on me. But some people are out to get me, and Piplup is my protection. Not weapons, not security, not a camera, a plushie of a Pokemon. That's how we do it right here in Memphis, Tennessee, baby.
The real Grizzly of Memphis, Piplup.
Absolutely. I just won a free Grizzlies jersey too. I'm having it customized. It's in the mail. It's got my name in the back. Got my number that I did when I played. If nobody knows, I played 3 sports in high school: basketball, football, and baseball. And basketball was my best one. My ex-fiance actually had it in with a team in BSN, which is the Puerto Rican Basketball League. And I almost got a tryout with a team there once. That's a fun fact right now on here. So the Grizzlies are very near and dear to my heart, but not as near and dear to my heart as pro wrestling, which has led to some amazing things. Like I said, it took us a little time. We were going to do it sooner, but thankfully we had to wait till Nello got okay. And he smartly held off on All Out, which has many, many matches that we were talking about. It's funny because the 2 shows we're talking about, one has so many matches and the other has like 5 or 6 on the show. So I like the differences there. We got some news to talk about. We've got, speaking of enemies, I mean, this is a big show for you. The last episode.
Speaking of enemies.
The last episode for a certain star character on Wrestle Update so far, particularly for you, which we will get to at the end. That's the grand finale. I know that's what everybody wants to hear most, I bet. So we got to save it for the main event. But right now, let's kick it off with WWE. They've had a lot going on lately. Obviously, a big news story coming up is the merger that's taking place, that's solidified. We posted it on the Twitter. Go to the Twitter account. Please follow us. We need more followers. We're just starting out. We're, a grassroots operation right now. Hopefully more people follow and check us out, because I've been posting some stuff on there, some fun stuff as well. We're going to get all kinds of fun goodies and treats on there, but also some live tweets, some cool stuff on wrestling, and just some news and updates pretty much every day. Wrestle Update 23. 23, it's the year we started. 2023 and Wrestle Update. That's the name of the thing. And with the logo, I even designed like an alt logo for us too. It has the W and the U, but it's mixed. I thought it was pretty nice personally. I don't know if y'all feel the same way, but I liked it. But the fact of the matter is, I posted about this on there. TKO Holdings, the new group involving WWE and UFC. Nello, I know and we were talking about it actually on the last episode. We had to wait a day because we watched the UFC show on there, which was awesome, by the way. It was a great show. But were you around when UFC sold, like in 2016, and all of that happened?
No, so I started watching UFC like, oh my God, I'm pretty sure it was like that big pandemic pay-per-view, like Oliveira in Brazil.
Oh, yeah.
So that is when I got into it. Or no. The first match that really, really fucking got me into it was Jedrzejczyk versus Zhang Wei Li. So it was that pay-per-view. And I've been watching pretty much all the numbered ones at least since. But so I was not around for the 2016 sale, though.
Yeah, and the thing is, I'm not a mega UFC fan, to be honest. It's not like this is something where I'm an expert on, especially compared to, wrestling and all. But I do follow along with it because a lot of people I know really love it. And obviously it's important in this particular circumstance. But from what I really did some research on this as well. I tried to find some facts and things going on there. In the 2016 sale, basically, when this all came about, they fired a lot of people. It's the long story short of all of this. They got rid of a lot of people, cut a ton of cost. This endeavor is like the ultimate soulless business giant, which a lot of people would probably say about WWE in the first place. But they are like double the soulless business corporation. I mean, Seto Kaiba basically runs this company at this point. They just fired everybody. They're all about cutting costs. They don't care. So that's a thing to look at on this in terms of a thing that could change. I know that there's been a lot of talk about Triple H not being on the board, and Dana White's also not on the board, so they screwed over everybody pretty much that was there with this merger. There's still something I had heard somebody say that there is actually a seat left, like one thing that hasn't been filled from the WWE side. So maybe Triple H could worm his way back into power through that. But obviously it's going to come in with the other soulless husk of humanity that run these companies, like Vince McMahon and things like that, will be at the top of the food chain as always. But the thing you got to look out for, if they run it like they did in 2016, and there's a famous story where Dana White had promised this like legendary UFC fighter, Chuck Liddell, who was a big part of their boom originally. He had promised him a job for life. And when it merged, they immediately fired him, pretty much. They were like, there is no jobs for life with us. And so if there's like a loyalty hire in WWE right now, or guys that have been just hanging on for, years and years, and if you're not a top star, basically how it was explained It was said at some discords, some news outlets, and things like that. How they've ran UFC is basically if you're a tippy top star, they love you and they'll take care of you. And if you're not a top star, then you are seen as expendable and can get fired at any moment, pretty much, if you cause too much trouble. So that could be something to look out for. If there's been people that maybe have been hanging around for a long time, will they clear things out? Maybe they'll run it different too. It's something, we don't know. It's an unknown thing, but I know a lot of wrestlers have been worried about this in terms of, obviously we talked about in the last episode with Edge, his contract coming up. It seems like it might be pretty good timing for him. Getting out of there while he can and maybe having that offer into AEW, and it might be the last chance for him. It may be terrible timing because he might have gotten a huge contract before, but now these guys might be too tight-lipped for it, or things like that. But regardless, that's just something to keep your eyes on. We'll see how it affects the product itself. That's the main thing for us, obviously, following it here. And then we had the pay-per-view itself, Payback, we'll get into here. This was the show where the main build-up to this was the big main event, which was Nakamura, somebody that me and you had talked about before. We had talked about at the SummerSlam show, maybe him being a potential winner of the Battle Royal and that leading to a title shot. He didn't win the Battle Royal, but they did give him a title shot, and they've done some fantastic build up to this match, and I want to say that right away. Give them credit for how they built that match up and continue to, obviously. Basically all about the back injury, and they've done storylines with him. That's the main thing. Obviously Becky and Trish have been feuding for months on end, pretty much. The other matches weren't as well built up. They did some for Rhea and Raquel, and the main thing, though, if you look at the show, again, it's the same thing we talked about on SummerSlam. Look at this show. All of these matches pretty much are Raw matches. SmackDown has no storylines whatsoever outside of the bloodline, and they just kind of everyone else, you just hope you can find something. And in fact, one of them, they needed to feud with a Raw guy to even get on the show. There was one SmackDown match total on this show, which was the most boring match potentially on the show as well, since Austin Theory was in it. But with that said, first match on the show was the steel cage match, Trish Stratus and Becky Lynch. Nello, what did you think of this coming into here? This match has been built for months on end. There was a lot of controversy about them not being on SummerSlam. How do you think they played it off? They finished this feud off. How do you think the match went?
This was my favorite match on the show. Again, I can't claim to watch weekly television, so I pretty much just keep up through recap shows. But damn, this was great. So many big moves, and what I was most in awe of throughout the match is how well they hit everything. I don't know, it really was awe-striking to me just to be able to watch Becky and Trish, and it was one of those, just do this kind of match, Trish climbing out of the top corner and Becky hitting the crazy superplex and just all of this shit, it felt like one of those matches that we would watch, I don't know, there's something about cage matches or Hell in a Cells that open a pay-per-view and just feel like the main event, and then there's the rest of the show. And for better or worse, I think that's how this match functioned on this card. Yeah, I don't know. I'm really happy Becky went over. I'm excited to see what she does next because I'm not entirely sure. And then the end angle with Trish and Zoe. I don't know. I'm excited to see that match. They've seemed to have put a lot of stock into Stark. That was really fun to say. And
you are a poet, man.
I try. I should have said it. Then everyone stops listening.
They will never stop listening for that. They will only love you more.
But yeah, no, I'm excited to see how Trish and Zoe work together. Becky and Trish is a slam dunk. I think that's an easy home run. They worked so damn well together. And I think that this is going to be really Zoe having to step up, no longer playing the sidekick nor the background character, but like having to go toe to toe with Trish is going to be a big like sink or swim.
First of all, I love this match. I thought it was so good. There was a review on Cage Match I saw where he was somebody was criticizing the match saying, "Oh, they hit each other against the cage too much." And I was like, "You're saying this is a bad thing? Look at these bruises that Trish came out with. These girls put their bodies on the line. They were going against the cage. You saw Trish fish hook Becky at one point. She was like totally vicious. And that's something I loved in their Saudi Arabia match they had a few months ago, is that their strikes, they like these two together throw some of the hardest strikes on the roster, I feel like. Not always in every match with Becky, but with Trish, for whatever reason, they just hit each other hard in their matches. And by the end of this match, Trish was so bruised all over her body, the arms, the forehead. You see the big black bruise on her forehead. It looked crazy. You mentioned the superplex, which looked absolutely ridiculous. Trish hung backwards on the outside of the cage, too, at one point. That was a very unique spot. And it was so amazing. I just really loved this match so much, and I was happy that they were able to have it here because the feud did get a Raw deal. The previous week on Raw, it was Becky versus Zoe in a hardcore match, and Becky ended up winning that, obviously. And they did a lot of that was a great match too, but this trumped everything, and I thought it was the best match on the show. I agree with you totally. I was watching the show with Ken, my grandpa, and I will be honest, he was a super. Like I said, I think he's still, even though he's older, he seems he shows live and he knows the score, but I think he's like still in between kayfabe and reality at times when he watches these shows, as evidenced with the tag match we'll talk about later. But he was rooting very hard for Becky to win. So I, as a troll, rooted for Trish to win against him and said, no, I think Trish should win. Which I'm not necessarily against either, because I think this Trish run has been awesome, like pretty much start to finish. Whether it's on the promos or the matches they've had with them, I thought they've done a great job, and it led to helping elevate Zoe Stark, who is a person I'm a big fan of. I love her talent in the ring. On the mic, she's not really fully there the way Trish is or Becky is, but in terms of her in-ring, I think she's awesome. And she played a part in the finish, obviously. And like you said, the angle at the end, basically, she tried to save Trish, but Trish ended up losing in the end. Becky got the win, as she should have, the triumphant win for the babyface. But then she hit the Z360 on Trish, and Trish got laid out.
Dude, that looked so good, too.
Yeah. It's such a cool move. Like, if it's hit right. If it's hit wrong, it looks awful, but if it looks right, it's brilliant. Like, remember that? I don't know if you saw this. She hit one on Natalya one week, which was a Z020, I think, on there. But this one looked great. Trish is awesome. I can't believe how good she still is. She's better now than she's been her whole career. I was a huge WWE fan when her run was going on, the mid 2000s, and I don't know if she's ever had a match as good as this cage match with Becky. I thought this was one of her best matches, and I think this is one of Becky's best matches, honestly. Like, I thought it was like totally perfect for what it needed to be. So much intensity and hard-hitting action that you don't always get, and you can compare it to the other match on the show, especially the women's match. I mean, this had so much more fire, excitement. Everything about it was just great, and the angle was good. I will say this, to speak to your point on Zoe, the follow-up basically made this seem like if they're going to feud, it's probably going to have to be on hold for a little while. Maybe Trish is written off for now. Maybe she will come back in the future around Rumble time, because they did an angle on Raw with Zoe and Shayna where, and this in playback, I like that they called back to this because they had a match a few weeks ago, and Zoe basically said, we have unfinished business. Let's settle this. Like, I don't care if we're both heels or whatever. And Shayna was like, all right. And they had a match But then at the end, it was a clean match, and then Shayna fist bumped her at the end. It was like, you gave me a better fight than Ronda did. And so it kind of seems like maybe she's a babyface now, like Zoe, and maybe Shayna both, or maybe they're a team. I don't know what's the deal is, but she did have a good match on Raw with Shayna at least. And Becky, they teased her actually going to NXT, facing Tiffany Stratton for the NXT title, which they showed her. They had a promo segment on this pay-per-view too to kind of set that up, and because basically,
that's right.
Yeah,
she was watching from ringside.
And on an NXT promo, Tiffany was like, a typical heel, I'm the best champion ever type of promo. And she listed off all these former champions. She was like Asuka and Shayna and Bianca and Becky. And then a bunch of people jumped on her online because Becky had never actually won the title. And then Tiffany walked up to her backstage and was like, I apologize for saying that you won the title when you never actually won it. And so that's actually this week too. On Tuesday, it's going to be Becky versus her for the NXT Women's title. So I don't know what that's all about. You have to think that it would be some kind of like goofy finish, like somebody will interfere, and that'll set up Becky's next program. Because I don't think they're going to put the NXT title on her. But who knows? I mean, that's another thing you have to look out for. If you notice, if you're an NXT viewer, they have really used a lot of the main roster talent on that show recently, like Dominic and Rhea. Yeah. Like they're putting all these – Ray was on there one week. They're putting all these main roster talent because I know that they're trying to get that new contract with USA, and it's helped the ratings. Like they've actually gone way up putting these guys and girls on there. So I think Becky is right there up there. Build up to a big title match. Should be some good business. But I don't think she should win the title. I think she should do something on Raw.
I would be interested to see her win the title, even if it's for a short run. I think they could do a hell of a lot more than when Charlotte won the title. I go back to that whole remember that Chris Hero interview? I think he might have done it with Post, but he talked about how the indies for a while, after kind of WWE and AEW signed everyone, he referred to like the indie talent as fatherless children. And that kind of feels like NXT women's division right now is like a motherless children almost, in the sense of like there's no real ace, right? And typically the women's division has always had that ace. Io, Shayna, Asuka, albeit brief, Ember Moon. And these people have pretty much always elevated others. And with the NXT women's division as of late, I mean, you had Roxanne Perez with that very confusing title run.
Listen, I love her a lot.
Same. I love Roxy, dude. New Texas Pro for life.
Hey, listen, I once fell for a girl from Laredo once, so I'm personally biased to anyone from Laredo, Texas. But that title reign was totally whack. Like, I don't know what they were thinking with that. I actually think they had good intentions. It was just done in such a Shawn Michaels way that I think it damaged everything.
Yeah, and then what? Indy won, and then she lost it, and then Tiffany got, and it's just like it feels like the TNT title kind of, where it's just very in flux. What was once like one of the most lauded divisions in the company is now just very in turmoil. So I think Becky could hopefully really right that ship and help a lot of these women who it's hard to be like have star making performances like when you're all kind of at like the same level and no one's really like breaking that ceiling. It feels like your Sol Rukas, your Kiana Jameses, fuck, even Wendy Chu. Big love to Wendy Chu. That would be so over in DDT. But I think like they need someone to lose against in that star-making performance, right? And Becky could really, like when Balor went back to NXT and did his run, that was like, that's what really elevated Kyle O'Reilly. That's what really elevated Pete Dunne. Those guys really got to the next level, and it's, but I would be a real big fan of her to win. And then just, I guess, some final thoughts on this match. Going back to the comments about hitting on the cage, if anything, I would say something this match really excelled at was the use of the cage.
I totally agree.
And more than anything, it was like you know, in a ladder match, in a cage match, when they're crawling out and it can just feel like such bullshit, right? Like you're just waiting for the spot to happen. There's no tension. They worked all of these scenes very well in terms of like the actual tension involved. Like, okay, the pacing makes sense. This doesn't feel like someone's going slow, right? Intentionally or whatever. Like the match felt real, and that's about as good you can hope for sometimes.
They even did the spot. Remember when, I think it may have been Trish crawling or Becky, but Becky was about to climb out of the cage, but Trish noticed that, like, hey, I can just walk out the door. And then Becky had to turn, like, stop climbing, come back in, and drag her away from the door. Whereas otherwise, like you said, it would have been a slow crawl, and they would have been, you know, like you said, it would have just bored everybody. But here they actually did it much better and much more realistically.
Yes, it's like a cage match without a lot of theatrics, which is kind of hard to pull off. It almost feels like, and you really have to, you know, imbue it with like that vitriol and just that anger. So yeah, I mean, I'd go like 4.25 on this. I
gave it the exact same rating, 4.25 as well. And I think the cage match inmates agree. Shout out to the inmates right now, 8.27 on 392 votes so far. So a lot of votes for this show here, and you get 8.27 right around that era. Dave Meltzer gave this 4 stars as well. So I guess we're all kind of on similar pages here. 20 minutes, almost straight, 20 minutes, 2 seconds for this match. Cool stuff. There. Great match. A huge fan of Trish. I really want her to come back because I think she's really been a great addition to the division in general. Then we see a bunch of boring stuff that happens. John Cena's out, and this run has to be something. There's been a lot of rumors about this happening. Everybody knew that there's this big India show coming up later this month that Cena's going to wrestle on it. But it's been said that he's going to stick around for the next 2 months at least. And a lot of people say the reason for that is because of the latest writer's strike going on in Hollywood. And that's affected so much stuff. You know, nobody wants to release any new movies because you can't promote it according to the rules of this strike. You can't film new content. So Cena's just like, well, I've got nothing better to do. I guess I'm going to be in wrestling again. And for him, that means coming in and cutting this lame promo. I hate Miz on the mic. To me, he's one of the worst promos, in my opinion. It's not because he's not charismatic. It's not because he doesn't try his hardest. But he just comes across so, like, I'm on autopilot. Like, none of this is real. It's just stuff I've been saying for 10 years now. When my head goes up. Yeah, your mouth goes shut. It's like, yeah, I've made a vid in WrestleMania. I do this. I've done that. We've heard the same crap for 10 years now, literally. It's just like such a low-effort promo, in my opinion. But that pales in comparison to the match that he had in terms of low effort. So Cena says he's now the special referee. They go roundabout, you know, who's on first, basically. That led to him saying that he needs to insert himself as the referee. And then LA Knight comes out. Special referee tropes abound here, where at first he comes in and calls it straight up, but then Miz goes too far and he has to pull him away, and Miz gets pissed, and then LA Knight grabs him and he goes too far in the corner. Cena pulls him away, and now LA Knight's pissed at Cena, and now they're wondering, will Cena, you know, knock somebody out? But in the end, LA Knight ended up, countering with the people's elbow, or the elbow, I guess you could say. And then the best move in wrestling, which was also my old finisher, the blunt force trauma, wins the 3 count for the win. And they try to tease like this tension between Cena and LA Knight, where Cena's like, we don't got to be friends, but it's about respect. And LA Knight's like, you want to do this right now? But eventually they just shake hands, and he puts him over. So LA Knight's over. But the match, this was like a nothing match, in my opinion.
Crazy that this went almost 16 minutes. This was the first time I've heard the LA Knight chant, like LA Knight, yeah. And it's one of those things where when the crowd does it, I'm like, we are not a species built to last. It feels very Fall of Rome. And like, I'm just like, this feels fucking fake. Like, I don't believe that people are yelling this. But on a match itself, like, this is the most 2008 WWE match that you could imagine. Like the most basic wrestling, the most basic counters. The Miz still can't throw a kick. And like, I just thought the psychology was very dumb. The spot with like Miz and Cena arguing, sure, right? And you can just sell that tension between like, is Cena going to screw Miz over? But when LA Knight got in Cena's face, and I was like, isn't he the baby face? And it just felt very out of character and out of place. And then at the end again, too, like LA Knight was just talking shit to Cena. And I was like, this feels so weird. I don't know. I don't feel like I understand this LA Knight character. He kind of just seems like a big dick to me, honestly. Like there's really no difference between him and The Miz. But dude, I mean, he's over his shit. Can't deny that. So congrats to him. The crowd was super into this match. And yeah, that's about my thoughts on it.
Ken hated this match, and I don't blame him. First of all, nobody likes Miz. But secondly, he hates LA Knight because he says he's just a ripoff of Stone Cold, pretty much. And he says, oh, he said hell yeah, and now he's saying, yeah, he's just a ripoff. And he does the people's elbow. So I think he's more like a Rock than a Stone Cold, in my opinion. Although he does have the vest, to be fair, and he does have the yeah, but he also has the people's elbow. So he is a mixture of The Rock and Stone Cold. He just has hair. That's the only difference, I would say. But he's such a basic wrestler. I don't know. The fans have really rallied behind him. But he kind of feels more like, a Zack Ryder type of guy where he's super for a few months. And then once this push fizzles out, I think he won't be that well remembered at the end of the day. But like I said, for right now, ride the momentum. I also don't think they did him favors putting him against The Miz. They need somebody who could work around him and create excitement in his matches, which, I mean, this really is, you kind of mentioned it, the Wrestle Factory of 2008 feels like it's coming back between these two, and the next match features another guy that I would classify in that same category, Austin Theory, who is challenging for the U.S. title against Rey Mysterio. And they did an angle on, a few weeks ago, actually, where it was going to be Theory versus Santos Escobar, but then Escobar got hurt, so Rey took his place. And then Rey won the title itself after Santos beat Rey due to injury. So we can presume that injury was real and they just rewrote it to where Rey could get the title shot basically anyway. And this was the rematch of it. And as I said, Average Austin checking in once again with his same match that he always has. And the thing is, LA Knight, he's kind of a new guy who's very over. He hasn't really gotten the rub or anything like that yet. This Theory push has been going on for like a year and a half, pretty much.
For two Manias now. For two fucking WrestleManias.
I think it's time to pull the plug on this. And he's not even over, and he's just as bad in the ring. This was the worst rematch that I could ever remember seeing.
Yeah, like I have not seen any evolution or development in Theory's character. He feels like he felt more exciting and evolved somehow, fighting like Babatunde.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know. Like, okay, there's that.
It's Gigi.
The what?
They got to pair Priscilla Kelly with him again, just like involved, trying to make him interesting.
Right.
They have her if they want to go that route.
There's that like deep lore Rey Mysterio story, right? Of like, this guy posted, when I was 8 years old, Rey Mysterio walked out and he gave me his mask. And when he like put his head against mine, he whispered, "You're a little bitch and you're always going to be a little bitch and no one's going to believe you that I ever said this." Right. And then he just walked away. I think that kid was Austin Theory at this point. Like, this was so bad. And the thing, too, is like, Rey looked great in this match. Like, it's just, to me, like, again, since I don't watch weekly television, unless people are wrestling on pay-per-views, like, I do not see them. So, like, I'm like, shit, I can't remember the last time I saw a Rey Mysterio match, really. And Rey still looks so good. And it's one of those things now where Theory has had matches with so many high-profile WWE superstars and just like general good wrestlers. Again, if you said, oh, he had a feud with John Cena that culminated at WrestleMania this year, like Cena was so right. And I think like promo honestly is what killed Theory. And, Cena's done that a few times. There's multiple, like when he did it to Reigns. Yeah. And stuff like that. And yeah, it's a total asshole move, honestly, right? But like, it's true. And unless you can do something about that otherwise to prove it, it's just facts, And again, like it's an asshole remark to make, but it's also like almost an olive branch in a weird way of like, you can overcome this, right? But yeah, anyway, just total throwaway. Not much to say about this.
Again, he's like the Wrestle Factory guy, pretty much. Like he would fit right in on 2008 WWE, in my opinion. And what you said about Cena's promo is so true. Everything he said was facts. And that's bad when you're looking at a young star. Like you said, it's a good thing if you're very talented and can overcome those things and prove him wrong and show all of these great things to make people care about you and love you. But if you asked a majority of however many millions of viewers watch SmackDown every week and how many millions watch these pay-per-views and PLEs, whatever you want to call them, what's your favorite Austin Theory match? What's the answer to that? They're all the same.
Babatunde.
We have to go back.
I was at that Evolve. It was Gunther versus JD Drake, and it was Austin Theory versus Babatunde. I think Chris Hero was on that show too, but anyway, honestly, but I say that in all seriousness because it's the only fucking Austin Theory match I can actually remember.
They need to pair him with Gigi. Again, Priscilla Kelly. We have to put them back together to reclaim that Evolve magic. He needs to grow his hair out again to the bowl cut that he had before. Oh. If they do that, they may be onto something. But I don't. Like I said, even if you say, what's your favorite Austin Theory promo? Like, compare him to Waller, who is like a somewhat similar wrestler, but just better, like outshining him in every way. So it's really bad when you have these, kind of white meat type of guys. And then you compare him to LA Knight, like you said, very catchphrase based, not really a great promo. Waller, very charismatic, like is a really good promo to me. And then you compare him to Theory, who just there's just nothing to him. It's not like he's some horrible wrestler, like botching moves and looking awful. It's just he's so bland. We got to do the scouting episode where we grade everyone 5 out of 10 in the categories. I guarantee you, if we did that, whether it's look, wrestling, charisma, mic skills, gimmick, everything is 5 out of 10. Like, he's like the most average wrestler you could ever invent. The only way he could be more so is if he was Ted DiBiase Jr., I'd say.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Yeah. But with that said, that match did end, and we got to the next match, which was for the tag titles, the Steel City Street Fight, because we are in Pittsburgh, to be fair here. 13,000 fans in the PPG Paints Arena. Is that what this called? Is this where the Penguins play? Like...
I know nothing about Pittsburgh except never mind. The Saw franchise is actually set in New Jersey. I was thinking it was set in Pittsburgh. So I actually know nothing about Pittsburgh.
Not even the Penguins.
Okay. I remember watching the Penguins versus the Pirates series. Like, goddamn, maybe this is 2012 and it was so violent and beautiful. So that's the one thing I remember.
Penguins. I have a bad relationship with the Penguins because the one time the Nashville Preds did make the Stanley Cup Finals, it was against him, and that series was so freaking rigged in favor of that punk ass Sidney Crosby that I would never forgive him for this. But hey, we saw a Sidney Crosby appearance in this match, and Mario Lemieux going in from the 90s here, so they got everything. This was just a crazy brawl, pretty much. The big parts of the match were, as I mentioned, when they got thrown over the barricade, and suddenly Zayn and Owens popped up with the Penguins jerseys on and hockey sticks. And Owens, a bloody mess at this point, just had a huge crimson mask. He was wearing the Terry Funk T-shirt. I guess he was feeling very inspired that day. This had to be he had to have done it on purpose in tribute, because if you notice, he comes in and brawls down the ramp with the bloody face, and then he stays out so they can clean it up a little bit. And when he gets back into the ring, the blood is all gone, which is so stupid. I hate when they do that. I don't know why they feel the need to be so sanitized, but that's kind of how they are, pretty much. But they brawled out again. Owens climbed up all the way to the balcony, flew off the table with a swanton onto Dominic after he interfered. The whole group, like an army, ran in this match. But he took out Dominic with a swanton, which he nearly missed and probably landed on his ass, which probably hurt his hips falling down so much. But it looked great. The camera shot they had from the right behind him as he leapt off was freaking awesome. They should play that on a million highlight videos, and I don't think they did it once on Raw, which I was shocked by. JD McDonough ran in, and Owens just destroyed him with he lifted him up into what was a pop-up powerbomb, but he just turned it into a spine buster onto the edge of the table. He wrecked his ass with this. It was fucking awesome. I love that move. I had to rewind that. Ken gave it a huge pop when it happened, but Ripley ran in, speared somebody through the barricade, and in the end, it was 5-on-2, and Finn got the win, pinning Sami Zayn. What'd you think?
This was definitely the Kevin Owens show for me. Total highlight reel, just all of the big spots involved him. Outside of the finish, I genuinely can't remember a lot of Sami Zayn spots in this. But I do not understand the hype behind this match. This, and you were saying, right, they're so sanitized.
Yeah.
And I think this match sort of really paints the difference between an AEW and WWE in the sense of this is a very basic Dynamite match. This is something that we get on Dynamite almost every week, just a fucking, Anarchy in the Arena, fucking Stadium Stampede. I remember that bunkhouse brawl with QT and Dustin Rhodes versus Butcher and Blade, right? The Arcade Anarchy with Chucky T and OC and was it Miro and Kip?
That was a great match, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean it's the same thing as this, where it's just total insanity, where it's them popping up in the hockey gear. Felt like a very AEW spot in a good way, because it's just that kind of I don't know, WWE is very cartoony, and then AEW feels more fourth wall breaking, for better or worse. And I think it's just one of those moments that's such a fantastical leap. Okay, when did they put this shit on? How'd they get it, right? But it's cool and you get pumped. But yeah, this, yeah. But outside of those moments, man, the Judgment Day stuff has such go away heat for me. There's nothing exciting about a 5-on-2. Ripley's spear on Owens through the barricade looked really bad, I thought. And then the whole finish with okay, man, these guys literally died against the Usos, right? And they don't have any kind of Orange Cassidy or Seth Rollins story about them being broken down or whatever. So for their title reign to end with because the ending was Dominic just essentially hitting Sammy with the briefcase, or what was it again?
Yeah, it was the briefcase, the Money in the Bank case, yeah.
Yeah, and it was such a weak looking shot, just such a bad shot. And then Balor with barely even a pin, just the arm over Sammy, and Sammy's just out. It felt really, I I don't know. It felt very weak, and
it reminded me honestly of an Attitude Era match, like down to the one-armed pin. That's something we've seen so many times, but the problem is it was Dominic delivering it, and his skill level. I think you probably have more base skills than he has. Like, you know, he is over as a heel and all of that, but I think you could have delivered at the very least a better briefcase shot than he did to Sammy here.
Yeah, I don't know. They're just hitting House of Torture levels for me.
Yeah, that was a lot like this match. You're totally right.
Yeah, and it's just if you need these many theatrics, I'm not as interested in it, because there's a big difference between a hardcore street fight like this, you know, where it's a lot of people brawling each other. But if it's just 5-on-2, it's like, dude, I don't know.
It makes everybody look bad, because now your champions are guys who needed 5 people to win the titles. It makes the former champions look bad because, like you said, they were having a great title reign, overcame, Roman and Solo in a big major match. Sammy got to go back to, like Saudi Arabia, finally getting let in, had this amazing moment. The amazing moment at WrestleMania even have been workhorses on TV. Like, they have been carrying the show when it comes to the wrestling itself in a lot of ways. Besides the Owens injury, huge pop. The Quebec crowd loved them a few weeks ago. I gave them huge reactions. They feel like stars. I want to shout out a review on Cage Match, actually, that totally backs up what you were saying. JJ Rule said, "This was the Kevin Owens show. If I were to recommend one match to make someone a KO fan, it would be this. He was an absolute superstar." And which I think we all have to agree. The reason why he stood out so much more than Sammy is because he was the one with the Mario Lemieux jersey on, while Sammy had bitch-ass Sidney Crosby. So I think that's why it made them, look better in comparison. But yeah, he was freaking awesome in this match. The Judgment Day stuff, I like these guys. Like, all of the parts are good on their own. Like, I'm a big fan of Priest. I think he's really underrated. Did great work against Bad Bunny. Had a great match on Raw with Seth for the title a few months ago. Finn, he really worked hard in the Seth feud. I don't think he's got that high of upside today, like as he would have years ago. Like you talked about the NXT run. Ripley, great look. I still have some questions, but even though this match wasn't that great, we'll talk about her match in a second. But she did have the great match versus Charlotte at WrestleMania. She's kind of up and down, but an amazing look, super over. Dominic, super over heel. JD, I wasn't really even a big fan of his on the indies, to be honest, but I like that they're at least trying something with somebody new, even if I'm not, I don't love him, but I like that they have a story they're telling at least. The problem is that altogether, all of this going on, and it's on TV. If you watch Raw, they're getting to bloodline levels of trying to force them into a million different segments, and they're overexposed. They didn't need to have 5-on-2 in this match. They could have just had the 2-on-2, and maybe you have a cheap finish if you want it with JD or whatever. I'd rather him deliver the briefcase shot than Dominic, but just do one spot to change the game. Don't do 5-on-2 where it's just a joke, like you said, so cartoonish and lame. And the match itself, the action, the breathtaking spots, this peaked really high. But the grand scheme of things, it was a good spectacle, but not a good match in my opinion. That's kind of how I would judge this. And like you said, it's nothing we can't see on AEW a million times.
Yeah, and again, a total highlight reel for Owens, but this is one of those matches, especially when looking at the cage match rating, it's like 8.81.
Yeah, that's too high. I didn't think
way too high.
Yeah, this wasn't as good as the cage match. Even if you're if you only watch WWE, I don't think you could. It's too much, man. Like, too much overexposure for Judgment Day.
Yes, I think that's a great way to describe it, as overexposure, because next match is Rhea and Raquel, and Rhea just did all this stuff, so I thought it made Raquel even look like more shit.
That's what I'm saying. This whole match made everybody look worse, including Judgment Day. So and their opponents even more so. So it sucks. But first, we have to talk about the Grayson Waller effect. he comes in, he calls out Cody Rhodes, and he basically says, well, Cody, you've had good times and bad times, but you're still here. And now that you're on my show, now you can finally turn your life around. And Cody's like, we know how all of these segments go, just like Piper's Pit and all the rest. You're going to attack me, and then I'll attack you, and blah, blah, blah. So why don't we do something a little different? Because I have a big scoop for you. This was posted on Wrestle Update Twitter as well, so he gave us the scoop as well. Cody Rhodes did. This happened. He says, I saw something that went terribly wrong on SmackDown, and I need to be righted, so I've cashed in all of my political power to make this happen, to bring over to Monday Night Raw Jey Uso. And then he says, I hope I don't live to regret this. And Jey comes out through the crowd. He's doing his arm thing, and the whole crowd is going crazy. Like, he got a huge pop for such a, like, simple... Like, so this literally happened like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and Waller even says it in this segment where he was like, they finally explained the thing with him and Jimmy. He attacked Jimmy Uso and said, I'm out. I quit WWE. Deuces, ooses. And he walked away. And now he's back after like 2 or 3 weeks. And even Grayson says, he's like, why is everybody so excited? You've gone like 2 weeks. It's not that big of a deal. And Jey takes great offense to this and super kicks him without even cutting a promo. And, I was on Grayson's side here. He told the truth. And, I mean, the thing is, the crowd reacted big to it. And it was something maybe a little unexpected, especially for Cody Rhodes. What a great paycheck for Cody here. Just coming out for like literally 2 minutes and just walked away. So he's on Raw. They did a storyline on Raw the next day where Jey is not trusted by anybody in the locker room. Like, Raw is like, why do we have this guy over? He helped Roman Reigns all these months. Screw him. And Sammy's like, whatever happens with KO, I got love for you, Jey, and I'm glad you're here. And they ended up hugging at the end, and the crowd loved it. And then Dominic also tried to recruit him into the Judgment Day as well, which what a terrible idea that is. But I like that it plants seeds, though, because I think where this is all going to lead is at Survivor Series, they're going to do a big blow-off match with Judgment Day versus the babyfaces. Probably Cody, KO, and Sammy, and Jey would be my prediction.
That would actually be a really fun Survivor Series match. I can't remember the last time we had a Survivor Series that fucking mattered. It's like, what, since Teddy Long lost control of SmackDown. Dude, Zack Ryder got kicked in the nuts by Eve. Different world.
That was I would have never, ever, ever remembered that in my life until you brought that up. Once again.
Welcome.
The best one was obviously the Raw versus SmackDown Survivor Series from 2005, which actually did feel like it mattered, even though it really didn't.
Is it the one where Kurt Angle turns at the end or something? I think it's like.
That was the Alliance, like when it was WCW versus.
Oh, yeah. Kane, Jericho. That was a pretty fun one. Okay, I digress. I loved how Waller opened this segment with like Pittsburgh and Cody Rhodes. They both have something in common. Neither has finished the story. I like that. This whole thing with Cody was so weird. Like, it really just felt like the way to get Cody on the show. And like him being the reason Jey came felt very weird and unnecessary. And it has like the same energy as Darby Allin being like, AR Fox, I love you, man. And it's just like, fuck. So yeah, I again, this is like, there's a lot of great moments, right? Like Jey doing the arm thing was really cool. It reminded me of like Brian in the cage doing the stuff. Like those visuals are always very powerful. And I think that Jey being on Raw and outside of the bloodline is exactly what he needed. What's fucking crazy is seeing like he does feel like a more main event upper card guy now. And then I actually watched Jimmy versus AJ Styles last night, and holy shit, was that bad. So it seems like Jey really got the better booking here. But I love Grayson Waller. Like, I really think
a great promo.
Yeah, what I like about his promo too is he's able to weave in that Jericho aloofness, right? Oh, you wouldn't want to fight me again, probably because I don't know if you could beat me, you know? And then he's like, what do you mean? I could beat you? And it's just like the total, like, you're just taking the bait, right?
Yeah.
But they're able to weave it in ways that don't feel like total bullshit. And I don't know. I like Waller's character. Again, I've seen him wrestle maybe twice. But I think he's fitting in well. Like, again, it's one of those things where you look at the current crop of people who are like, come to NXT. And I think Solo Sikoa was definitely the number one, but he's really cooled off a lot.
Yeah.
And again, it's because he hasn't had any feuds of his own, really. And I mean, to me, I'm like, Grimes is pretty missing. JD's fifth fiddle in the Judgment Day. I think Waller's probably been, outside of Knight, like the most successful. So I'm excited to see what he does. And I think what's cool, at least, is on all of these Waller effects, they put him with the top talent in the company and the top talkers in the company too.
Yeah.
Cena in England, Cody here. I'm pretty sure they did one with Edge, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, they did.
And there's never been a moment where, like, you know, that Cena in Theory promo where we're talking about, there's never been a moment like that. Like, he has been able to go toe to toe, and that's been really cool to watch.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with you. He's a guy that I see a lot in the role that they probably, like, you a great comparison, him and Theory. And they're trying to pair them up a little bit on SmackDown, which I think does Theory no favors, because you see the promo they cut side by side last night, and one of them is way ahead of the other. And I don't think that's a good idea for either guy. And it drags down Waller in the ring as well. So I'm not a big fan of that. Solo, I totally agree. I mean, he had a great start coming in on Raw, but that storyline, this bloodline, we talked about it after SummerSlam, and I thought you made a lot of great points about that. This storyline has become so stupid that nobody likes it. They just did the deal where Jimmy is the one that turned on Roman in the first place, and now he's trying to get back in his good. What? Like, this storyline is stupid, and nobody likes it anymore. Like, all I see is negative comments, even among the most tried and true WWE fans. They might get into it again when Roman comes back, but as of now, the stuff with Jimmy and Solo, it just sucks because it's so stupid. And I love Solo. I think he's got a great presence and a good worker. I'll say this about Jimmy. Compare Jey Uso's theme song to Jimmy's new song, and Jimmy way won out on the theme song battle, because Jay's is just like a remix, a worse version of the Usos theme song. We got to hit that up on YouTube with the time.
He's just like talking to himself the whole time.
Yeah, it's like, it's all me now. Day one. I was like, what?
It sounds like he recorded himself singing in the mirror.
And they're like, hey, do y'all got any ideas for a new song, Jay? You're not gonna believe what I just put down here. Listen to this. I love the Usos characters though. Like, they remind me of two of my friends that I had growing up. Like, they're exactly the same how they act character wise. But I love the arm thing, like you said, the whole crowd doing it's a great visual. And I totally agree with you. He has more star power now than when he was feuding with Roman and in this bloodline stuff. So, and I think it's great too, because him and Sammy were the key to the bloodline angle to me. And they're already setting up them kind of reuniting again, which I think the fans will eat up, and I will eat up too, because I think it's a great pairing overall. But I'll ask you one more question before we blow past the women's match, because we don't have anything to say about it. They are also doing a storyline where, because he's on Raw now, Raw needs to trade over someone away for Jay, like the SmackDown. And a lot of people have speculated that could be Sammy, to kind of like break up the locker room, like added tension, because he said it like, Adam Pearce said it like, well, somebody's going to have to go to SmackDown and you're going to be even more hated because of this now. And people have said Sammy. I thought it might be Cody, actually. And that could be a way Cody, because that would at least explain why he made this happen somehow, that he needed to get to SmackDown to fight Roman for some reason. Even though it doesn't make a lot of sense when you could just win the Rumble, but I wonder what they're going to do with that. Like, who's going to leave Raw and going to piss everybody off and make them hate Jay more?
Oof. I mean, Cody seems like the likely choice again, but it's that weird babyface booking.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's one of those things where, okay, the person who wins the Rumble, I'm going to assume is going to fight Roman, right? So even by switching to SmackDown, that doesn't necessarily guarantee him the WrestleMania spot. So I don't know, but breaking up Kevin and Sammy, I hadn't thought about that, and that could be interesting. Like Sammy back on SmackDown, I just don't want him to get involved with the Bloodline again unless he's winning the title.
Yeah, I personally don't want that to happen because I think that they have a great thing with the team on top of it. They've been very valuable to the show itself and made it better. And on top of it, like you said, Sammy going right into the Bloodline, we've been there and done that. And unless he's going to win the title, which I don't think he will, but if that happened, that would change my opinion, obviously. But if not, then I'd just rather him stay away. And I think they have a lot more interesting things going on. Again, to bring back to where we started. This show had 5 Raw matches and 1 SmackDown match. Without Roman Reigns, SmackDown is just a sinking ship, pretty much.
Yeah, and okay, it's very reminiscent of like the Codyverse, right?
Yeah.
Where there is the Bloodline, and then there's everything else that happens outside of it. And you know, imagine if AEW, and I think that's what's exciting about Jey Uso right now, right? Is remember like Cody's last feud, I think, in AEW, or like towards the end, he had that pay-per-view match with like Andrade, Pac, and Malachi. And that was so fucking exciting because it was the first time that Cody like sort of left his universe. And it was like, wow, he feels part of the show now. So like for me, it's, you know, imagine the Codyverse without Cody, and then you have the fucking QT Marshall and Dustin Rhodes show, which like not very exciting to me. And I think that's kind of what you have right now with the Bloodline. Like, you know, one of my hot takes would be is like, I do not care about Paul Heyman. He's very much like The Miz to me, where I think he's done the same fucking thing for so long. I like whenever he talks, it's just there's nothing meaningful. There's nothing authentic, and not in the way of like, oh, he's a slime bag, but just in terms of like these words hold no fucking weight. Like, this is just the same thing you've always said. It doesn't matter. You're going to say the same type of promo. And, like, he is by far, in my opinion, the worst part of the Bloodline. Like, and I don't know. I think that Jimmy and Solo, if they were running their own tag team right now, almost – because you could do something like Roman's gone and now everyone's gunning for them, right? But it's just – yeah, it's –
literally in 10 seconds you've crafted a better storyline than they are doing actually with that, because that would actually make sense. It would be good, and I totally agree with you on Heyman. Way overrated on the mic, in my opinion, for the same reason you said. But we go to the women's title match on Raw. Ripley and Raquel Rodriguez, like you said, we just saw her spear KO through the table, or not through the table, through the barricade. This match went forever. Barely anything happened. The only thing I noted was when Rodriguez hit her with a forearm to the face and knocked her nose ring out. So you could see, or a piercing rather, not a ring, but it knocked her piercing out, and you can see blood trickle down from the nose. So we had a little bit of blood in this match too. They didn't fix it or anything like that. But in the end, I mean, 17 minutes of this. What were they thinking?
Yeah, like, okay, another thing, right? Like Raquel hitting the back pose, it's soulless. Like, it's just the same shit over and over. I'm like, surely, like, do you feel good about doing this, or do you just feel like an asshole? Like, I mean, and like, that's very mean, but like, dude, you've just been doing this back pose for like, it's like Tony Nese with the abs, but at least Tony Nese says other things now, does other things. And it's crazy that in 17 minutes, no character came through Raquel whatsoever. And, you know, what I was hoping for at the very least was like Hobbs versus Miro, right? Which we'll talk about. This could have been that, and it just was nothing. And again, it's like they have the problem of having a champion who is a star and having absolutely no one else in the division that they're willing to pit against her. Because like, I mean, you have Becky. But like, damn, they have nothing for Rhea. And I think that is like the big issue. And yeah, I don't know. It's just, I really didn't like this. Nothing else to say. I don't know why I expected a Big Japan like strong match, but I was like, that's what this should have been. Because like Raquel can't do a lot of fucking big moves anyway, so it's as much as you throw arms, just as simple as possible. Yeah.
And it's a shame because her attack a few weeks ago before they did the injury angle on Rhea was very impactful, very exciting, very, you know, she really manhandled Rhea, and like that's something you don't get to see a lot. You know, she was fired up, threw her into the post, just slammed her around, Raging Bull style, you know. She was like, Te voy a patear culo, mamacita. There, she was saying all this stuff there. And I was like, man, she's got something here. And then you see the match. And that was literally like, I'm going to kick your ass, mamacita, in Spanish, by the way. I translated that. She said that. And she was like, she's got something. And then this match happened, and it was just nothing. Like you said, so soulless. That's a great word to describe her in this match. I mean, the back flex was cool, maybe the first time she did it, and it's like, okay, like you're jacked, we get it. But instead, like you said, this could have been the meat match, and instead we went full vegan on this vegan meat. You know, no meat whatsoever in this match, and it made it worse. You know, very, very poor match. I gave this like 1.5 stars. Like it's like a 2-star match that drug on forever and made it more boring.
Yeah, I gave this a 1.5.
Yeah, see, we're on the same page. We're grading all the matches. Yeah. But that said, boring match. Like there's not a lot to say. And they're going to do a rematch, and now this time Dominic will not be allowed at ringside. So hopefully they learned from this and something. They can tap into something more. But like you said, the main problem is you've got one big program, which we're going to try to hold out for WrestleMania. And these next few months, there's just nobody there. They need to try somebody new. And I don't know who that would be. Just give something like work an angle similar to what they've done with Gable and Gunther, which has been absolutely fantastic. They had a great match on Raw. Very emotional. The crowd loves Gable. They got behind him. They have people in this division, like if they wanted to do something with, that could at least get a good and interesting match out of them. And I think they're probably going to build to Liv Morgan as well after this because her and Raquel were tag partners. But give me some Xia Li on this. Do some, you know, have her knock Rhea Ripley out or somebody out, make her a dangerous threat. It could be her, like somebody. Indy, like you've got, at least you can have fun promos with her. She's got size. You can have another power matchup if you want, or somebody smaller you could do something with on there. They've got different people, but they just don't want to do anything. It's just goofy on Raw.
Yeah, but, and last thing real quick, but you know, Rhea and Dom at this point, because I forgot Dom was in this too, but there's really, it's just like if you put goth makeup and bondage onto Carmella and James Ellsworth, like that's the paint job. There's no difference, and I'm so over it. Like it's just awful, and I think it diminishes Rhea's run as a champion a lot. Totally like so.
And the fans aren't with the same page because they hate Dominic, but Ripley's popular with the fans. They always chant mommy for her. And you think goth paint and bondage would make things better, but somehow it makes it worse than before. That's how bad they are. They're ruining good things on their own. Judgment Day overexposed again, once again. But they're setting up a match on SmackDown. Io and Asuka finally happening in a couple of weeks. They set that up. So that's going to be something cool to look forward. Hopefully they get a pay-per-view match next month, and maybe SmackDown could have their own match one day on a pay-per-view. But it wasn't here because we went to the main event. As I said, Nakamura, great angle they've ran. Some of the best work between this and the Gable and Gunther deal. Two of the best storylines they've crafted in forever. Nakamura versus Seth Rollins for the title. And I love the way that this feud, and I'll talk about the match, and we'll talk about the match in a second, but I just love the way all of this has really brought Seth back to reality, because I really hated his character for a long time. The dancing and the sing-alongs, which is still there. The fans love the song, and they're going to sing it for him no matter what. But they actually got him to be somewhat realistic, talking about his family, bringing Becky into it, bringing his child into it, talking about how his career could come to an end. I think this angle would be like a feud of the year angle if it was with somebody besides him, because the problem with this is this whole match, and I thought personally that Nakamura did some of his best work in a long time. I haven't been a big fan of his run in WWE, but if you look at this match, he was completely to his game plan, going to the back, hitting hard, trying to injure Seth and going after it constantly in the match. But Seth, he can't help himself from doing all of this stuff that he always does. He literally did a kip up in the match. Why? Why did you need to do the kip up? Why did you need to run up the ropes to hit the Frankensteiner? I did like that they said that he would normally do the superplex into the Falcon Arrow, but instead he changed it to the Frankensteiner, which I think that's enough for me. It's kind of silly when you think about it. Like, it's still going to hurt. You're flying to the ground on your face, but at least you changed it a little bit. But then he does the kip up and just erases all this good stuff that we've done so far. So that was my problem with the match. I still think it was a worthy main event, and I love the story, but I wish that he had actually just had a hint of just used your psychology stuff for this match.
Yeah, Nakamura's performance was sort of neutered by like Rollins's performance, right? Rollins's in-ring work was sort of antithetical to Nakamura's psychology, and it wasn't in the sense of like, you can't break my back, right? He's not like cracking his back like fucking, Wagner Jr. cracking his neck or whatever. Best spot of the year. Every time it happens, I feel like I puff my chest up. It's so cool. Totally agreed. Nakamura had the laser sights on for this. I loved the intro, all of that stuff. And I really think that this could have done better in the opener and just flip the opener in the main event. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second, but this was really the match where Rollins's sort of performativeness came through. And the sense of man, when he hits the curb stomp, when he hits these moves, it really feels almost like when you play wrestling games and you're doing the Create a Wrestler and you're going through all the moves and it has the little previews. It looks like that in the sense of I'm going to hit this move, but there's not the haptic feeling in it as much, right? It's all very loose. It doesn't feel as impactful. And right now, and I mean, granted, this back injury is fucking legit as far as I know. Apparently his back is fucked up, but it kind of reminds me of Thunder Rosa's reign, where it feels like the champion isn't quite able to match their performance before winning the title right now.
Yeah.
And I like Rollins for the most part. I think he definitely is one of the stronger performers in WWE when he's really on. But right now it feels like he's performing more than fighting. And I know that's a weird thing to say with wrestling, right? But LA Knight versus The Miz is a match of total fucking performance. But it works because they're on the same wavelength. But Nakamura is working a Jay White, Hawkeye's just, I'm going to break your goddamn back and do nothing else. Roddy Strong, totally focused, and Rollins just trying to get his shit in. And I think that's where it really clashes. So they are continuing this Nakamura-Rollins feud now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and afterwards they did this really awkward ending to the show where it just felt like Nakamura was pacing on the outside, super pissed, and he just stood in the ring. It was like 2 or 3 minutes straight of just him sitting in the ring. And I was like, well, when's the attack coming? But then they did the attack after the show happened, and they were like, they did another subtitled video for Nakamura where he said, hey, I'm coming for the title again, and I'm going to destroy you.
See, this is why, like, that right there, I feel like you definitely could have switched these two matches. Yeah. I think there's something about losing in a main event, right, versus an opening match. Even if it's still the world title, I think there's a big, big difference there. And I think that for the next match, should Nakamura win, that's when you could slot them in the main event. And I think, like, just the go-home image of Becky having defeated Trish, and then Zoe turning on Trish, and then you could even have a stare down between Becky and Zoe while Trish is laid the fuck out in the ring too. Like, there's just a lot more meat there. And then having Nakamura, turn on Rollins afterwards again, I think, or just continue the feud, it would have been better in the opener. But I just really hope Shinsuke wins the title. He feels super inspired right now, which is great. Totally. He has fire underneath him, which is great. Huge Nakamura fan. Like, I never complained too much about his WWE work because he really has given us, like, spoiled us so much, right? And I think, like, we're seeing the difference now between, like, him and Tanahashi, where it's like Tanahashi, it's like, I mean, dude, he's just on like a fucking skewer right now and they're just cooking him, dude. And he deserves like that break. And he just never got it because he was never in a position where I feel like in WWE, like Nakamura's really gotten to take a step back and now he can show up for these moments, rather than struggle to always put that thing on. So I'm not going to complain, but I really hope that this is the beginning, because this is starting to feel like when Nakamura and AJ, it was like, okay, he's gonna win, right? And then it just didn't happen, and I'm really hoping they capitalize on it this time.
I hope so too. I think this is by far his best WWE work, and I thought the entrance for him was phenomenal. Like the anime inspired entrance they had, or manga inspired, with storytelling was so cool. It made him seem like a superstar. And even at the start of the match, you heard some chants still where there was a contingent of fans that were chanting for Nakamura too against him. I think that he's just on a top level right now, and I love the storyline. I love everything about it. I even loved Rollins' promos. I thought the serious take on Seth was really needed and really helped add some depth to this like character, which I said I did not like at all. And I think they did a great job. And they did a lot right in this match, especially Nakamura. But there was just that extra 10 to 15% that if they had taken those parts out, it would have been a really good match. Instead, it was more like a 3 and 3 1/4 star instead of like a 4 or 4 1/4 star,
Yeah, totally agreed.
Show overall, the cage match was where it was at, and I think that the tag match was so out of control that if you just turn your brain off, there's enjoyment to be had by the performance of Kevin Owens. But outside of that, and the main event I thought was a worthy story, and they're continuing it, so that's something. But the cage match was really the only thing I would really recommend from the show, and maybe the tag match, just because it was such an out of control spectacle, more than a good match.
Yeah, overall, I would say it was like the bookends were probably the only ones I would go back to watch. Very fun to see Kevin Owens live his life to the fullest. Outside of that, again, it's like one of those things where I pretty much only watch the pay-per-views, and going into the next one outside of Nakamura and Seth, I can't say there's a lot I'm looking forward to. I just really hope there's a Gunther match on the next pay-per-view.
Gunther and Gable, Iron Man match. That's what we need right now. Settle the score. Get revenge for the daughter. Which was a great match. It's on YouTube. It's like 11 minutes. But still, they worked so hard. The crowd loved it. I just love seeing Gable. Gable, to me, has always been one of the top performers in WWE. And to see him get his roses is so cool. So highly recommend that match, and hopefully they have a match in the pay-per-view next month. And we will see what happens with Nakamura and Seth again, see if there's a gimmick to it, see what they have planned. They also inserted Ricochet a little bit in the feud on Raw. Monday they did an angle where basically Seth said, hey, you want a title shot? I'll give you a title shot right now. And Nakamura was like, nah, no thanks. And Seth was like, screw this. And then Ricochet went up to Seth and was like, listen, you're killing yourself, Seth. You don't have to carry Raw alone. You've got help with me. And Nakamura started to attack Seth, and Ricochet ran out to save him. And they did a match where it was Ricochet versus Nakamura, but Nakamura just blasted Ricochet with the steel chair and destroyed him. And then Seth tried to save him, but Nakamura got the one-up on him in the end.
Hell yeah, Nakamura. Let's go.
So that has been our WWE portion, and now let's get into All Out. The show with so much surrounding it. I'll just ask you right away here, despite everything, because we knew about what had happened, potentially a person who wants to feud with Kevin Owens, based on some reports out there, getting fired right before this show happened. What did you what were your feelings on this show? Because a lot of people talked about how bad it was to do a show right after All In, to do this show next week. A lot of the matches didn't have any build up to it at all. Were you affected by that, or were you just like, screw it, it's going to be a show with a lot of people I like on it, it's going to be good wrestling, and yeah, it's not built well, but oh well?
Yeah, I can't pretend like my excitement level was very high. I did, however, though, I would say like Saturday morning, once I saw the news, I got so excited.
Yeah, me
I was
too.
so excited.
You texted me right when that happened, too.
Did I? Oh my god, yeah. That's so funny.
Yeah, you, like 5 exclamation points on that when that happened.
Yeah, like it's a great feeling. It felt like the gray cloud was just removed, and to see something actually be done about it, right? Because we were talking about that, like it's the same fucking thing. Nothing's being done. He's just been given more. And so in like a world where literally it's like people just get more power, like no matter how fucked up they are, it was very refreshing. It was very, very refreshing. So once the pay-per-view started, I mean, honestly, it's hard for me to talk about the show as a whole, right, with the pacing and everything, because it was after Joe and Shane Taylor, I pretty much tapped out just because I was sick and like I was not really able to process what was happening. Yeah. But like this is my all-time favorite AEW pay-per-view. I can't think of another pay-per-view where, I mean, for me, once it hit like from Luchasaurus and Darby all the way to the end, I thought those were all matches that I would watch again, pretty much. Like that to me was just like, it's just constant hits.
And one of these matches for me is like that's probably my match of the year, at least in America and maybe the whole world. Like and there was 3 that I would say were legitimately like 4.5 star plus, like 4.5, 4 3/4, or 5 star level. And like you said, everything was pretty good after that. So the show itself, the show definitely delivered everything you would want out of a pay-per-view. The build up to it, I totally agree with the critics of it, to be honest with you. Even into All In, I agreed with the critics. I think the build up wasn't any better for that. And here we have this show kind of thrown together. But like you said, the news of the firing and everything actually probably heightened my interest and heightened a lot of people's interest to see just how this crew would do. And I think pretty much everybody on this roster, and I'm not saying it was because he's gone, you know, as much as we want it to be, probably. I'm not going to go that far and say it was because he was gone, but I think a lot of these guys on this show had a chip on their shoulder and extra pep in their step to deliver and make this show, which everybody trash talked, everybody counted it out. The company's in disarray. They want to still make it worth it for this show in front of 9,800 people in the United Center. So with the show, 0 Hour happened. It was all right. Like overall, like there was some good stuff. The highlight of it was clearly Hikaru Shida and Athena facing off in the women's 6-woman tag, but they were all like 2.5 star matches pretty much. And Hangman won the Battle Royal, and they set that up for what happened in a great segment on Dynamite with Hangman and Swerve. I thought was awesome. Although we do have to wonder, how was Swerve in a coffin for 2 weeks? Like how did he fly to America in a coffin?
The Demeter ship, the same one Dracula came across on.
Oh, okay.
That's my only thought.
Two people who many people say are very similar: Swerve Strickland and Dracula.
House of Wrestling reports that Swerve Strickland was not greeted at Heathrow Airport and was forced to take the Demeter. Fucking.
Who were those sources, Houseman? Let me see your source for that. I think somebody's been telling lies that's been talking to some of these sources we may be talking to about a little bit. But the main show started, and it started off with the Ring of Honor World Tag Titles. Once again, same as the All In, where it was the Dark Order, Alex Reynolds and John Silver, and they took on Better Than You, Baby, Adam Cole and MJF. I mean, this is another thing. I know the fans love this whole deal, but I'm just really not a fan of Cole and MJF. I think their stuff is so cheesy. You heard the crowd. I mean, they loved it. The kangaroo kick chants were going crazy. They did the trope with MJF going injured, but then he had to run back down to save him. It was like, I feel like this whole feud and this whole angle is like some sort of meta angle, like discussing the state of wrestling, because you have every trope possible and every cheesy one on top of it. I don't know. I didn't think this was a great match, personally.
No, the matches are always so overblown. Like MJF being taken to the back, blah, blah, blah. Like, if you put this match and then the angle in between and the Joe match after is like the opening of a Dynamite, that's a great opening to Dynamite. But this felt so unnecessary, just a way to get the people on the show. And again, like, I think that this could have happened on Dynamite. Like my thoughts pretty much for this match and the one after, just very filler. Like nothing really of note. The whole MJF being taken out angle extended this match way too long. And again, I think you could have had a better match without that on Dynamite, you know? Do a tag team battle royale on the pre-show, whatever, have the pre-show end with Cole and MJF coming out, signaling the belts to Dark Order, whatever, you know, just get him on the show, have him make an appearance, pop the crowd. Shit, you could have done it on Collision the night before, you know? And then with Joe and Taylor as well, it was very cool to see Shane Taylor on a pay-per-view. But just a very empty kind of pointless match ultimately. Yeah. Like it felt like just a way to put Joe over. But again, this felt like such a television angle to open a pay-per-view. And if there was one weakness, I would say that would be the biggest one.
Totally agree. It's like these are total filler matches in both cases. Even with my distaste for Adam and MJF, it's Dark Order challenging. You know, they're not going to put the titles on them. Like, what was the point of this other than to just continue this MJF deal? And Shane Taylor, I'm a big fan of Shane Taylor's. I think he's a really good big guy wrestler. Mm-hmm. And it was like a 5-minute match, but still what they did was still pretty fun. Him and Joe, I thought Shane is a really good guy that I hope that they give some time. I'd love to see him used on Dynamite. I'd love to see him and Keith Lee reform their tag team that they had back in the old school days of Ring of Honor. I think they'd be really good together. You could have a good big guy team between them. And they did kind of set up the thing with Joe and MJF as well, where Joe shoved him, and that set up the angle on Dynamite as well, which all intents and purposes, it looks like Joe will be the next challenger for the title.
Yeah, and the whole purpose for both these matches is what happened in between.
Yeah.
And again, like I think that Shane could have got better visibility on TV. Yeah. Maybe he could have got more time, whatever. And then the whole like just interaction and everything between MJF and Cole, I really did not like. or MJF and Joe, sorry. And a lot of that has to do with Adam Cole. Like their relationship is hitting parody level in terms of Cole, like Max, like he's feeling just as cartoony as fucking Roddy at this point, but at least Roddy is fun. Like Cole just kind of feels like this annoying friend. I don't know, but like it really feels like Dennis and Mac from It's Always Sunny. I don't know if you've seen that. Yeah, like they feel like Dennis and Mac. Like MJF's just a bastard, and then Mac's like, "Hey, are you okay? Do you need a tissue, my friend?" And yeah, I don't know, but I'm thrilled to discuss the rest of the pay-per-view.
Who is the D of AEW?
The D, Tony Storm.
Absolutely. Who was freaking awesome. Chin up, tits out, watch the shoe.
Such a great line. A great line.
I not call this. I have to mention, I have to praise myself for this. I said that she was the most entertaining part. The only person more entertaining than Juice was his wife on the show. I did say that, and she is proving it every week. Whereas Roddy, as I said last episode, he is the Tommy Wiseau of wrestling. Like, this guy cannot act at all. And like you said, it's gotten to the point now. I hate it because I love him so much, and I want him to be a wonderful wrestler, and I loved when he beat Jericho, and I thought they had something with him, and he's awesome, and he always has been. But I'm starting to come around because he's so over the top that, like you said, at least if I turn my brain off, I could have fun with it, even though I wish he was not doing what I wish they were doing something else with him.
I forgot what I was going to say, but yes. I was going to say, do you think Bryan Danielson could be Charlie?
Absolutely.
Like, just two lovable weirdos.
Look at that picture that Fightful always posts whenever they have a quote for him, with that weird look in his face that they have.
I feel like he could be like, oh my God, he's like, I like ghouls, goblins, milk steaks. You'd be like, what? He's like, it's normal, dude. Trees, apple is just sperm, dude. Like, okay, bud.
I love it. I love Bryan Danielson, and I will talk about my love for him next. But first, we have to talk about our love for the next match, which has a lot of lovable people in it, and Luchasaurus as well. Christian, can we not mention a white turtleneck he came out with for this match here? They fully enlisted Darby and Nick as a partnership, Nick Wayne. AR Fox was not here, but with that said, hopefully they'll continue that, and he's not just forgotten, like it kind of seems like he will be. But we have Luchasaurus and Darby, and you. This was where you said the show really picked up for you.
Yeah. I thought this was probably Luchasaurus, like one of Luchasaurus's best single matches I've seen. He had that violence in his moveset. And I mean, granted, Darby if there's one thing Darby's great at, it's bumping. And, I thought he just threw his ass around. The finish was super impactful. To me, the one thing that Luchasaurus needs to just, because I'm starting to really enjoy this TNT reign. Because the thing is that Christian's chicken shitness, right, dealing with it, is being backed up and like supplemented well with Luchasaurus's in-ring defenses. Because, if you have Christian, he's talking all this shit, and then the matches are just kind of not great. Like, we're getting sort of the best of both worlds here. More than anything, I just think he needs a name change. It's like how when Roman stopped wearing the vest, like I think that was the best thing he's ever done. And I feel like Luchasaurus can keep the mask, but just bring back like the Lucha Underground like energy to the name, like what was it, Vibora or whatever. Yeah. Give us something that sounds fucking evil. But yeah, I thought that this was like just like one of those good Darby matches in the sense of big man, small man, and I'm going to get my ass beat.
Darby to me has to be one of the best like in-ring performers in the company, where any situation, we saw it on Dynamite against Nick Wayne this past week, Whether it's that or a big guy like Luchasaurus or Joe, obviously they had some legendary series, hardcore, technical. Like, he gets the absolute best out of every weapon in his arsenal, in the ring. And here we also saw a little bit of the dramatics with the finish, where basically Christian was going to destroy Nick Wayne with a concerto, but that distracted Darby to where Luchasaurus could hit the tombstone and then the big lariat to the back, which was freaking great.
Yes.
But yeah, Luchasaurus, totally agree. Best work of his career here. And I was really doubtful on this title reign at first, but I'm starting to come around again on this. I think that they're doing better things with him, and he's delivering what he needs to with Christian at his side. I do also think that there could be a little bit of explanation given for why he's helping this jackass pretty much character that's stealing your title. Like, why can't you just be the sole champion on there? Why are you helping this guy? Why are you loyal to him when he's clearly using you to be the champion and being and eventually they'll break up probably, and that'll lead to a great moment. But I wish that there was an explanation more given besides just, oh, well, we both hated Jungle Boy. But with that said, still a great match overall. And the next match was also a very strong match, and definitely made by the crowd. Miro versus Powerhouse Hobbs here. This was meat. This was meat personified. There was meat up and down everyone's wazoo in this match. You could not get a meatier pro wrestling match than what we saw here in this meat fest, which obviously saw the meatiest one of all, Miro, get the win.
Yeah, this was awesome. This was a match that, the main comparisons I think that I've seen have been Swerve in Our Glory versus The Acclaimed, where the crowd really put these fucking people over to the next level. Like the chants, the meat stuff, like that's something where these two guys created, it feels like, a match type in AEW now. Like, we've gotten big man matches, like, because we even got like Joe versus Wardlow versus Hobbs, but none of them ever really hit that level of like meat, right? And this crowd, I think that this is a match that both guys, it's a star-making performance for, like, Miro, who's come out in a fucking tank before. But I think this is exactly what both these guys needed. Hobbs I don't think Hobbs lost anything in defeat here. I'm excited for the feud to presumably continue. Them doing the Predator handshake thing was so badass as opposed to the normal one.
That was good. Yeah.
Because again, that's like the small little storytelling that makes them feel a level above other competitors, right? It really made them feel larger than life. Also, I was going to say, sorry, my mic was muted when you were talking about Lucha and Christian and their backstory. But it kind of feels like Undertaker when he helped Vince at WrestleMania against Shane or whatever. It's like, okay, whatever. But I totally agree that is missing. But no, this was a really fun match. Like I said, this is what Rhea versus Raquel should have been. And I thought that this, like, Luchasaurus hitting that lariat on a Darby's back, if that sort of set the tone, then this really heightened the pace in terms of like the physicality of this show. And I think that that's the big difference, right, between WWE and between AEW, is that WWE in-ring style feels so predicated on hitting the move, and AEW feels predicated on hitting the wrestler.
Yeah. Point.
And it's like, you look at the way Biff Busick would hit a half and half in WWE versus on the indies, and it's like, that's all you really got to know. But I love this match. I gave it 3 3/4.
I gave it the same rating.
Hey,
what did you give Darby and Lucha?
3.5.
The same rating. We have the same shit. Man, this is crazy. Like, we're having all the same ratings on these matches. Unbelievable. But the one complaint I have about this is that I really wanted them to just leave it at the handshake. Like, just be a team, like, going forward. Like, the fans would have loved it if they had just united. And I think even now, I think there's still a lot of fans that would love to see these two pair up and just be an awesome, badass team. I am 1,000,000,000% for that. To me, Miro is another one of these guys. I said Darby was one of the best in-ring performers. I honestly believe Miro is one of their top overall talents. Like, again, if we're doing the scout game,
his promos are fucking unreal. And it's like,
always,
when he just started, I was just like, where did this come? I mean, it's because Lana was always his mouthpiece in the WWE, but I'm like, damn, dude, like, he really is. Like, and the thing about his promos too is that they are fucking eloquent, man. Like, they are brilliantly written, like, and each one has like a punch in it. It's not just like, you're a little bitch, Max. It's like you're gonna learn the pain of God. I'm like, what? That's crazy. They all sound like mosh calls. And so talking about wanting to see them team, totally agree. And maybe, like, you know, my ideal fantasy book in here, selfishly, would be something like the formation of the Bar, when Sheamus and Cesaro did that best of 7 series, you know, which just culminated in them being just a badass tag team, rather than, you know, just having it be the respect here and then them becoming a team, you know, having that sort of finding that commonality and, you know, beating each other to the point of death and being like, all right, we can make something from this, right?
Yeah.
So like that would be a really fun continuation of the feud, should it culminate in them teaming together. I think that could be really fun. And weirdly enough, it's one of those things where AEW went from, you know, being the deepest tag division to really needing new teams.
Yeah, that's a great point. Because they're kind of lost right now after the FTR and Young Bucks deal. And they obviously teamed up on this show. So I totally agree. That's the dream, is that these two do team up. But I love your idea. And they did reunite Miro with CJ, his wife here. So and a lot of his promo was like, I've forsaken, because like for a long time he was saying how he was God's favorite champion and, you know, bringing the wrath of God to everybody. But then he forsaked God and also his wife somehow. So I guess now he's getting back to where he was before as the Redeemer. He's found his wife, and but he didn't really accept it. He was kind of like, hey, what are you doing here? You know, was kind of his reaction. It wasn't a heartwarming reuniting. It was just like, hey, this is a plot point of the story.
Yeah, I honestly completely forgot she came out, but it's a good wrinkle.
Oh, and then he said, "You're not real."
It's very 80s film, dude, and it's wild that, I mean, if we want to get into the theory of it, right? Like, Miro definitely is like in opposition to CJ Perry. It's like she almost exists as like this castrative force, where it's like if he embraces her, it's like he loses almost. And I don't know. I'm excited to see how they continue to elevate this insanity. It's very like Paul Verhoeven, you know, Flesh and Blood, RoboCop, Total Recall. It just has that fucking wild genre energy. And like these fantastical religious elements, Hobbs and meat, like sign me up. It's the kind of weird I like.
Yeah, this has everything into it. Now that you mention it, it has every possible like type of storyline all melded into one. So I totally agree with what you were saying. Let's see if our dual ratings can continue with this. The TBS title. Chris Statlander defending against Ruby Soho here. And I will say, to me, this was like this was a step down from all the other matches. But if you compare it to like Ripley and Raquel, then it was a lot better overall. It's just the pay-per-view surrounding it, especially the match coming after it, I thought was like such an amazing match, an amazing show. This did feel like a bit of a step back. But for the title reign, I think it's another solid defense. It stats TBS reign. And Soho, I definitely think, continues to be one of the bright spots of the division, which has faced a lot of criticism for a long time now. But I thought she's done a good job. And they're continuing with the Outcast breakup with Toni Storm, who I think Tony is just too entertaining. Like she's gonna turn herself babyface. I feel like eventually, but they're continuing to break up with the Outcast, and Stat gets another good title defense here. What did you think?
I really liked it.
I had this at 3 1/4 as my rating. What about you?
I did 3.5.
Yes, we have one quarter star difference, baby.
Yeah, let's argue now.
Yeah.
I really disagreed with Meltzer on this. I don't know why he gave it 2.5. Positives of this match: it did a really great job at maintaining the intensity established in Miro and Hobbs. I thought, like, this was hard hitting. Ruby has really gotten, like, you know, like you said, she's a bright spot in the division. I think she's someone who you can actively see, like, sort of entering, like, her prime era. You know, WWE, the style, like, it's just very limiting, right? And I think that sometimes coming out of that, like, you know, when Andrade first came back or first came in AEW, the matches were kind of lacking, right? Same thing, like seeing like Metalik, like some of these guys, and, you know, just people just work a different style and realize, like, okay, I don't have to do all this. But even some of, like, the crispness and, again, like, the force is lost. And yeah, like I said, like, the easiest way to get me interested and or invested into your match is to have hard hitting qualities, just because it provides that base level of, like, realism that are, like, even just, like, energy that I can chew on, right? My biggest complaints with all the Outcast matches have been that interference, you know, just like Judgment Day. I believe there was only the one spot at the end of the match that involved Saraya and Tony. And I liked it because it didn't have, like, it wasn't obnoxious, and it served a narrative purpose. And I think that Statlander looked strong enough in the match overall that it didn't diminish the finish for me necessarily. And what I also like too is that Statlander still felt strong, and Ruby didn't lose too much in terms of another, you know, high profile loss on a pay-per-view. So for me, like, this was a good match in terms of what it set out to do. And more than anything, like, it's like, I'm happy that we got a good women's match that got over 10 minutes on a fucking pay-per-view. Like, that's the base you should be asking for, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. I'm really happy with Statlander's reign so far. I thought her defense against Emmy as well on Wednesday was great. She's a wrestler who can really, you know, you can do these short bursts. Like, you know, we're going to talk about Danielson and Starks next, but the amount of physicality in Danielson and Starks in 16 minutes is like the same as Kento and Nakajima in 36, right? Both matches serve different purposes, but I think Stat is a really good performer at making every single match, no matter the time of the length, feel super intense. Not so much as like get your shit and sprint, but more so as like making each thing really count and being able to format those different styles and still make them feel as full as a longer format as well.
Yeah, I really agree with you on that. And I think I like what they're doing with Stat. The thing is, it's always going to be a problem with the division until they dedicate the TV time necessary for it overall, in addition to this one, or in addition to the pay-per-view time, rather. But if you look at the performances, the talent's always there.
Yes.
Yeah, like the talent's always there, up and down, and we saw a lot. And they're trying to build some stuff on Twitter, even, or X, with Saraya and Emi Sakura. Saraya just looks like a just complete jackass on Twitter, as she normally does, but now in storyline at least. But I like what they're doing with these two, and I like where we're going here. But overall, still a very good match, and I like what we're seeing here. The next match, though, I'm going to take a second here, just take a second to breathe a little bit. Bryan Danielson versus Ricky Starks.
You just took a knee. You're like,
I'm going to take it
out of respect.
I'm building it up for you, so I want you to talk about this match. And I do have to take a second to leave anyway. So I'll be right back. Give me 1 minute.
Okay. So this match, fuck, I don't know. I feel so on the spot now. Oh man, I loved this match. This was an absolute ass beater. Danielson is one of those guys who was just able to give everyone their best match. Like when we watch G1s and you have Ishii in there, and he elevates people to other levels. And I think that there is a difference between the ways that Ishii and Danielson do it. With Ishii, it's like he doesn't let you work like at a minimum level.
Yeah.
And oh shit, okay, you're back. Sorry.
I told you.
Oh, okay. And he elevates you to that other level. Like he's really going to push you to that big match feel, whereas Danielson almost feels like, okay, to cap off Ishii, it's like the in-ring wrestling.
Yeah.
Danielson feels like he pushes you past a spiritual level of violence. Like in terms of, I'm trying to think, like, what's a good example of this in Japanese wrestling? Something I've watched recently. Just like the whole, like, I'm going to slap you in the face as hard as I can. And it's going to be that moment where, like, if you take it or if it's going to awaken something in you. And I feel like Danielson awakens the beast in individuals. And that is his whole thing, is he wants to, like, bust you open, not to make you bleed, but to make you, like, ascend.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Kind of like how an example of this was kind of like Shuri and Julia last year in their feud, where that feud was ultimately, they were rivals and bitter rivals and everything, but also the main goal of it was for Shuri to take Julia to the next level that she was destined to be in Stardom there. So I totally get what you're saying, and I 100% agree. First of all, like I said, I hope that 10 seconds or whatever I was gone, you were praising Bryan Danielson a lot while I was gone, because if you weren't, then I'm going to fill in for you and praise him some more, because this man is so damn good at wrestling that he could have, like, he's missed multiple portions of this year due to injury or time off or whatever. And yet he's still, if you look at his resume this year, he's untouchable. Like, if you look at his run earlier in the year with Roosh, Bandito, the MJF match was a great match.
The TV match is one of my favorites of the year too. I thought that was the match that really broke Takeshita through the ceiling.
Oh, absolutely. And him versus Roosh is still, it was my AEW match of the year until this match happened. And that's the thing. He's competing against himself pretty much. You know, whatever he has is the match of the year until he has another match of the year level match. And there's so many great wrestlers on the roster, and yet he still outshines all of them at his age, at his wear down, the time he's missed. It doesn't matter. Like, match stipulations, this man literally just walked in. He was a surprise. He saved the show because somebody else got his ass fired. He wasn't even booked for the show at all originally. And yet here he is, filling in the strap match, defending Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. How can I not love that that story beat, for the record? It doesn't, it makes sense, but it basically came out of nowhere for, Ricky Steamboat to be involved in it. The one good thing the Chick Magnet did in his time was to bring in Ricky Steamboat onto these shows, and the torch was passed to the one who should have it, of course, with Bryan Danielson. And I was thinking about this because you really hyped up Ricky Starks on the last episode, and deservingly so. I really agreed with you. I know a lot of people criticized him, but I was thinking, man, you're really going to hold this guy down because it's a Jericho feud? Look at what he did against MJF. Look at the matches he had against Hobbs. Look at what he did in this match, having this amazing match. Starks deserves so much credit here for stepping up and rising to Bryan Danielson's level, not just in a match that really isn't his style, because he is this flashy guy, super charismatic, trash talker, and now he's getting brought into the gritty, badass world of the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, and he didn't just survive, he thrived here, so much so that they're already practically turning him babyface with the promos. Like, the fans are gonna love him. This guy just freaking rules. Great match, 5 stars. Match of the year level match in the US, in my opinion.
You know what? Like, Cody's TNT title reign really was one of the best things for the company in its early days, because like it brought in Kingston, it brought in Starks, and like those are 2 of, I think, your brightest fucking characters in this company. Like, the damn, man.
And the most meaningful no sell too at this match too, when Bryan fired up. When Stark started to brad up, you heard the crowd chant, "You fucked up, you fucked up," because Bryan started to no sell and fire up. It was so meaningful and so good, and I could have done without the Big Bill stuff at the end, but it was fine. In the end, everyone looked good in the end, and Bryan ended up getting the win anyway. And I loved the finish. Very much reminiscent of the Stone Cold and Bret Hart. And obviously this wasn't a WrestleMania match. It didn't have the build-up. I wish that it had. I wish these 2 had been feuding for the last 3 months, and this was the blow-off. But it was still great, even if it wasn't as good as one of the greatest angles of all time, the Austin Hart double turn. But still, it was well done and great all along. And I really thought everything outside of that one thing with Big Bill was like a amazing, excellent match.
Yeah, I'd give this one 4 3/4. The finish just looked fucking like gut wrenching. And Ricky Starks just purple as hell, swollen face. They did a great job of that. You were saying you wish this was the blow off of a 3-month feud. Yeah. Totally agree. I wish we had more story for this, but the violence, the intensity, and it felt like the importance of winning this match had that energy of like a blow-off feud. And the fact that both guys were able to bring it to that literally on 24-hour notice, not even. Like they like 12. Fuck, it's crazy. It really is amazing. I don't know. It's the strap definitely helped. I think totally with like adding that extra element it needed. And yeah, Starks showed up. I think he's proven now that he is capable of really wrestling any style, because he typically holds his own, if not shows up his competitors. Like, I think the Jericho and Hobbs feud, I think he carried both of those. Like, I think Hobbs is starting to really hit his stride as a wrestler. I saw him once versus Rocky Romero at Defy. That was the best match I ever saw him in, and he brought a lot of that intensity and variation to the Miro match, which I was like, yes, this is the shit I've been wanting to see. And then I don't know, like, okay, on another quick side note, but we'll get into this, like, I guess with, Claudio, and then also Miro and Hobbs and just Danielson and a lot of wrestlers in this. But, to me, this is such a tangent, but Gunther, one of the best qualities he has is the fact that he finishes people so many different ways. Yeah, and AEW is starting to really embrace that. And I am loving it. And that's to say, in terms of like, the uppercut finish, Hobbs with his spine buster, but then, Hobbs with the spine buster, Orange Cassidy busting out the spear. There's just so many basic strongman moves like that they're doing lately that can effectively end matches that are bringing a lot more suspense to me. A lot more great false finishes. And yeah, to tie up Danielson and Starks is definitely one of the matches of the year for me.
No, don't apologize. I could listen to this all day right now. One other thing too, point you brought up, I want to shout out somebody right now that I'm becoming a big fan of, and that is Stevie Richards' YouTube channel. And he does like breakdowns. This is stuff I wanted to do, to be honest, but he's doing it now, doing a great job of it, where he just breaks down moves like one at a time. It goes over the psychology of them, but more so, even more than that, execution, which I think gets underplayed so much by some people. And he recently did a video on, he compared 4 different spheres. It was Goldberg, Rhino, Roman Reigns was one, and Edge was the 4th. and he looked at the technique on all four and how they were the same move, but how they did them different. I really love Ricky Starks' technique on his spear right now. He has one of the best spears where if you notice, when he launches into the guy, when he wraps the arm around, he claps. So it makes it more even. It makes it sound more devastating, like a thigh slap, but not geeky and lame. It's actually it makes sense and cool.
No, and he also does the follow through as well. That whole front tuck or whatever, which helps so much with the visual impact of you're hitting this, and it's not unless you're Sekimoto and Okabayashi and it's just a total fucking impasse, it's like that. I just hit you so hard, it's like a car doing essentially just like a drive-by slam. I love it.
Absolutely.
So what'd you give this one, a 5? Did you give it a 5-er?
5 is tough, but I think it's close. It'd have to be at least 4 3/4, I think, there. But I want to be different than you, so I'll just go with the 5 now. Okay. And I'll edit it later on in the year. But either way, it's still the match of the year in America for me.
One of my favorite things that Meltzer has said is someone asked him, how do you know it's a 5-star match? And he said, you don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
And he's if you have to ask yourself, and I don't know.
I guess you're right. I guess it's not then, because I just thought about it.
No, so I wasn't trying to do that. No, I just like the sentiment he shares.
You've taken away Brian's 5-star match, a heel move on Nello's part here. But no, like I said, it's still the best match in America to me this year. So either way, it will be remembered. At the end of the year, we're going to do an award show on Wrestle Update, and match of the year. This is the clubhouse leader for me right now. But up next, you mentioned – before that, though, they did an angle where Nigel McGuinness came out and announces that Adam Page chose to give $50,000 to the Chicago Public Education Fund. A teacher himself. It makes sense in the storyline. And a good thing that AEW did here to give charitable donations here. We love seeing that. Good stuff. Shout out to the kids out there. Hopefully it goes to a good use.
Oh, I had a – what if during when the battle royale was happening on the pre-show, rather than Justin Roberts being like, Brian Cage has been eliminated, he should have announced the charity that they were going to donate to instead. He's like, the Chicago Public Library has been eliminated.
Yeah, what a horrible idea that was.
I think it would have added a lot more suspense. I don't care about Brian Cage winning, but I love libraries, so
that's true. Yeah, the Red Cross. Unbelievable. Thankfully, they didn't do that, but still, he got that. And you mentioned Claudio earlier. He was in the next match. Claudio and Wheeler Yuta taking on the team of Eddie Kingston and Katsuyori Shibata. Eddie came out with the Claudio Sucks Egg shirt, so we're still doing the Terry Funk tributes here. You got to love seeing that. And Shibata is Shibata, who he always is. This was a great match, I thought. And I love Claudio. I think he is another guy that's really one of the best in the business. I love what he did here. It's interesting when you look at the differences because you have Meltzer. He gave this 4 1/4, but the inmates gave it 7.20, which is probably closer to me, to be honest. But I still thought it was really good overall. 16 minutes might be a little long for a match that is more or less a build-up match to Eddie and Claudio. But in the end, they won, the BCC won, which I thought was interesting. I thought Eddie was going to win, pin Yuta, and maybe set up a match with him and Claudio. But instead, BCC stood tall here going on there. And they did a thing, too, where he won with the big uppercut. Looked great. I love that move. The pop-up uppercut always looks awesome. I love that it's a finisher now. Like you said, AEW as a company using different finishers for different guys. He tried to kick out after the 3 count, but he did get the 3. It was a good finish here. I liked how the finish came across. I thought it was a good match. Cool seeing them together. What'd you think?
I wish this was the opener. I think if you cut the 2 ROH matches and had this open up, oh man, I loved this. I think this had a special aura too because you knew that, or not general knowledge, I guess, but I really closely watched the whole Eddie Kingston and Kawada stuff all weekend, and knowing
that.
Yeah, and like, knowing that Kingston was performing in front of Kawada for the first time, him hitting the Northern Lights bomb after Kawada asked him to specifically to hit it,
Yeah.
was really, really cool. Shibata, just getting to see him wrestle anytime, I'm not gonna lie, it pops it up in automatic quarter for me. He's just one of those guys.
Yeah.
Kingston and Claudio, so great. Yuta is still like, dude, Yuta's one of my favorites in the company.
Me too. Way underrated in my opinion. I love his wrestling.
Yes. And God, like for most improved, it would have to be like him or Wagner Jr. for me. And I think Jr. edges him out for now. But like, fuck, man, they're just great. But yeah, I love the finish of this. I really think that was like my favorite part was just that out of nowhere element. And it didn't feel like one of those, wait, what? It felt like a damn, I
also love, if you notice in the background, Shibata, he had Yuta in the sleeper hold while Claudio was pinning Kingston. So it was like if he had just let it go, he could have broken it up, but he was too focused that they weren't close enough as a team.
Yep. And then also Yuta's always like half dead celebrating after the matches is so hilarious. But okay, I do like the fact that Blackpool won because the trend that we kind of have with them is whenever they work with, quote unquote mercenaries, they lose. Whenever they work as a trio or like a tag team, they have such like an effective record. And I think that's what I really like is that as a unit, they are solid. And then when they like need other people, they just sort of fall apart because they don't have the camaraderie they share. So yeah. And the way they built this match too, the promo on maybe it was Rampage, but Claudio uppercutting Yuta in the back was that was probably the best Claudio promo I've seen. And I think, Blackpool Combat Club is such a fascinating faction to me because you have Brian, maybe who loves to murder, Moxley, who's one of the biggest fucking heels in the company right now, and then you have Claudio and Wheeler, who are starting to feel like Gunther and Ludwig Kaiser, and I love it. Like Claudio really is starting to feel like a really he's starting to feel like a singles guy within, like, because Moxley and Brian are very much singles guys in Blackpool, but they still fit in with the faction. Whereas Claudio and Yuta have kind of just felt like faction guys to me, but now they're starting to really round out the dynamic. And I think it's Claudio with all these different finishes and then that sort of intensity of like beating him down in the back, right? And it feels very much like that the mat is sacred. I'm going to push you, right? So yeah, I thought this was such a sleeper hit for me. Just a really great, like if you need a match to break up a card, this is like about as good as you can hope for. So I'd go I'd go 4 on this.
I went 3 3/4. So again, a little bit different here, but still more or less on the same wavelength. I think it would have got there if what you said had happened, and this was the opener. But it also played a great role in the overall card as too. So I do agree. I agree with everything you said there too, and especially like what a great bridge match from where we were with the strap match to the next match. I thought it was like perfect to how it did. Konosuke Takeshita taking on Kenny Omega, and they go at it here. I love the story of Kenny wearing the old style of gear, like the DDT style of gear with the green and the yellow on it.
Yes, that was such a great little note because like right when I saw it, it immediately like the image of him fighting fucking Fujita Jr. popped in my head.
Yeah.
But then I was like, dude, this was his DDT. Like this was his color signature.
Yeah. Takeshita came out with his awful music here, but they went after it here. This was the exact type of match. If you are somebody who's a huge Kenny Omega fan and you saw what they did in this match, they were running that playbook here, and Takeshita, I mean, who better to go along with any playbook than him? And they did all kinds of crazy stuff here in this match. They did one winged angel type of deal. They tried to do it from the top rope, but Takeshita ended up countering it into a Blue Thunder bomb, which looked freaking fantastic. There was some screwy stuff with Don Callis, which is the one thing that took away from the match, in my opinion, where you had the screwdriver and all of that, where we talked about it in the last episode. It's so not unnecessary, to say the least. They tried to do some other stuff here, use the Zahi over and over, and he finally hit it with the knee pad taken down for the win here. Really good match here. What did you think here?
Yeah, the tone really got set when Takeshita hit that backdrop driver. That was like one of the first moves, and that to me had the same like oomph to it that the Tiger driver and Omega Ospreay had. So I was like, oh fuck, they're doing the match. And like it's one of those things like where you watch like masters perform, right? And it's almost like you're not able to fully appreciate what they're doing simply because it's like, I knew this is what they could do. And it's just fucking incredible. Like everything they did was so great. The only stuff I really didn't like was the screwdriver again. If we're going to make Takeshita, and I think that's why I would go 4 3/4 on it, maybe 4.5. Is just because of that stuff. I think if you're making him as this beast, you gotta go with it. Like I just don't like the insecurities around just letting someone win clean. But yeah, all of the moves were insane. Like the teases, the top rope one wing angel and the Blue Thunder bomb was crazy. The V triggers to the back of the head. Oh my God, didn't they hit some very specific moves that weren't theirs yet, right? I need to take notes. But I feel like this was one of those things where like, maybe I'm wrong, but Takeshita took like one of his moves or one of like, he hit a Kamigoye. I don't remember.
Yeah, with a Zahi at the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I just loved all that stuff. Great counters throughout. This was big match Omega, and I think like this match has been talked about for so long, and it delivered on every level. I just wish Don Callis, like I don't mind that he was there, but I wish that he did not get involved. Again, like I think the screwdriver wasn't needed, and it's fucked because it feels like in almost each of these big Kenny Omega matches, like we're getting one thing that kind of like cuts him short, and it has nothing. It's always involved in the booking. But yeah, great match.
Absolutely. It's something that I was so happy to see. They did some stuff with the chair earlier on too. There was part two where he hit the brain buster on the floor too. So they really went all out here. I thought this was a great match. The Callis stuff turned it down a little bit to where this would probably be my third favorite match of the night. But when the level is so high, I mean, wow. But I gave this 4.5 overall here. I thought it was a great match. And if they had just changed things around, I think it could have challenged for that match of the year, like entered that stratosphere. But I think it was just short overall. But still, great match. And I hope that unfortunately, the tournament, which we'll go over a little bit after the end of the show, but was so stupid that Takeshita's not in it, despite this huge win here. The next match was the 8-man tag match. Bullet Club Gold, Juice and Jay, Gun Club, they took on FTR and the Young Bucks here in this match. Somewhat of a pointless match, but still they did use it to set up the tag title in all likelihood as well, with Cash Wheeler taking the fall here to Colton Gunn. It was set up by Jay White. So maybe some punishment for his recent legal issues maybe here. But the match was all right. Like I said, it was good, but not to me, this was a step down, kind of a cool down match between the last great match and the main event, but still a good use of its time, though, and a good way to use it with 20 minutes. I mean, it's got great ratings. Maybe I'm a little lower on it. I thought it was good, don't get me wrong, but this was 3.5 to me, not 4.5, like Meltzer. What about you?
Man, Colton Gunn getting the pin in this is like the complete opposite of Wheeler getting the pin in Anarchy in the Arena for me.
Payback.
Yeah, it's so bad. No, but the guns are fun. Like Bullet Club Gold is definitely working for me.
Yeah.
The FTR Young Bucks storytelling in this, like, albeit sort of cliche and predictable, was solid. I definitely think that this match could have been more of a sprint. Like, I don't know. Like, it was just too long for me this late in the show. Again, I think if you're going to do, you know, a match that's like a buffer between, like, you don't need a lot of time as like a palate cleanser, refresher, or whatever. And, you know, GCW, they use their scrambles to do that stuff. And I feel like that is always just kind of nice. Just more of like a quick pace, like, oh, this, and this. Like, it's really just like a circus show for like 10 minutes. So, you know, if you leave, like, you're not missing anything that's going to hold a lot of weight, right? And then if you're there, it's just total spectacle, but without like the really heavy narrative. And this match had very heavy storytelling as well. So as a buffer, you know, I think that's when you gotta loosen or let up on the brakes just a little bit. And I think that, you know, this match required sort of the same level of investment as, you know, a Takeshita Omega in terms of like the strokes that they're doing and everything, the storytelling beats. So it didn't quite pull me in, I think, enough for that. So I would give this one like 3 1/4. And yeah, I don't know. I really hope that Bullet, like Jay and Juice, get the tag titles. I think that they could have a lot of fun there. And then random thought, what if Danielson gets Eric Rowan into the Blackpool Combat Club and him and Rowan fight Starks and Big Bill?
I love it. Like a great tribute to their past and Bray Wyatt. You get the fans on board with that. I think they would totally vibe with that. Overall, I don't know how much he fits the group, to be honest, but for a one-off like tag feud, I could be totally down with that. Or maybe even just a match, they could set that up. Be like his ringer, pretty much. Like, hey, I went outside the club for this particular guy who's so big we don't have anybody who can match him. So I got this big guy and somebody who I'm friends with, and we have this connection. I'm totally down with it. I think that'd be that could be like a Collision main event you build to for a couple of weeks. Maybe you have, you know, singles matches and then a tag match afterwards. I'd be down with that for sure. This match, I agree with you about Jay and Juice, though. I'm a historical Jay White hater in New Japan as a main event talent. But I really like the run they're on as a tag team. I think they've done some of the best work of their careers. And Juice, too. Juice was, like, doing nothing for, like, 3 years. It felt like he was totally just not caring anymore in New Japan. And then you see him in AEW, and it's like all of this passion, like all of this insanity that he brings to the table. And I think they're just such a fun team. They've totally worked. The Gun Club, again, similar vein, too. Like, all of these kind of, like, crazy, goofy guys who are kind of likable even though they're heels, and I think it just works, like this whole group pretty much. So I'm totally down with that, and that seems like where they're setting up something in the future. And I do agree, Juice and Jay deserve the titles overall. I think that would be a good follow-up until we get to the dream team of Miro and Hobbs winning the title as well. That's future booking, I guess, there. But I agree with you. I like your points very well. If this were in a different scenario, if this were a Collision main event, I think it would work better than the buffer match, like you said. Do something very easy, maybe turn your brain off instead of this thinking man's type of match. I completely agree with what you said.
Hell yeah.
Main event time, international title, Jon Moxley versus Orange Cassidy. I thought this was a fantastic main event, and just the type of great match that makes it all worth it. Say what you want about the show, the build up, the controversy, the disarray of the company. When you see a match like this in the main event where this was a real life moment, and again, I look at this title reign almost, my biggest issue with it has been, this is a great gimmick, a great storyline, a great title reign for the totally wrong character, in my opinion. But for the guy who plays this character, who is clearly a fantastic wrestler and performer, this was a real moment. Like, to see this title reign end, this wasn't a character moment. This was a real moment of somebody who's put everything on the line for months now, had all of these matches, been pretty much the TV MVP of the promotion. I mentioned Danielson earlier, but again, he was gone for a long time, and when he was gone, OC was the one carrying the torch for the show, and to see it come to an end he finally main events, and he gets his deserved roses at the end. It was an emotional thing for a character 2 years ago, nobody would have ever expected any of this to happen and come his way, but it worked out brilliantly, and it felt like a great moment. I think this might have actually even overtaken the Danielson and Starks match for me if Cassidy had won. I think like that was the one thing that he was missing, in my opinion, was to beat a legit main eventer, because he's done everything else you need. He got the win at All In a great match where his win again highly improved that match, in my opinion. If he had not won, I think that match would have came across a lot worse than how it actually did. If he had won here, this was still a great match, but I think that if that had happened, I think he would be a legit main eventer, like a made guy at that point. And I think they could still get him there now, but I do think that Moxley getting the title basically slots him, and maybe his day will come in the future, and it probably will, and it hopefully will. But I think now was as good of a time as any to do it, and I slightly disagree. It's not like a major issue or they screwed up bad or anything, but I would have had OC go over, and that's just a little nitpick on this amazing 4 3/4 star match as well.
Yeah, this after everything that had happened in the week with Punk and all that, this was really like the heart and soul of AEW, just like colliding in a fucking ring. It was so beautiful, honestly, that this was the main event. Going off what you were saying, right, about the fact that he needed to be a main eventer. Cassidy has the belts very needed AEW.
Yeah.
He may not have won the main event, but he elevated this title to the main event of a pay-per-view. I think this is the only title besides the world title that has main evented a show, if I'm not mistaken, or a pay-per-view. So while he didn't beat Moxley, he created a second world title. Like, truly, if MJF's, AEW World Championship is very much in terms of the booking practices and sort of overall theatrics, that's your universal title. And OC essentially, established the international title as the World Heavyweight Championship that was just created for Rollins, right? Out of necessity. And meanwhile, Orange built this organically to the point where him and Moxley main evented a pay-per-view. I loved everything in the match. OC just bleeding buckets. The whole ending of him just really getting his flowers, and the cheering was beautiful. And on that note too, this was one of my all-time favorite Chicago crowds. This crowd was insane, and they were so good. And what I loved, and what I think, what I can pretty much, I'm going to tie up my thoughts on CM Punk on this as well.
Yeah.
Because it all kind of bleeds into each other, but it sort of goes to the same concept, right, that Vince McMahon has sort of burnt into some people's minds, that pro wrestling began and will end with Vince McMahon, right? And it's like, no, pro wrestling existed long before, and as we've seen, pro wrestling can and will continue to exist long after Vince McMahon, right? And the way that Chicago wrestling was sort of made to feel, at least especially during the past, was it only been a year or 2 years? 2 years, right? For CM Punk?
Yeah, 2 years.
Yeah, 2 years. But in the past, okay. And it was very much like Chicago can't exist without CM Punk, right? The United Center. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, we have to get him back for Collision there. And I think what we saw was AEW had their best show ever in Chicago the day after CM Punk was fired. And if that doesn't say that AEW, and Chicago have always had this relationship. I think you can see like it was never CM Punk. It was always AEW and the roster that showed the fuck up tonight. I'm really excited for Moxley. Like, and again, I think you have this really beautiful story with OC now in terms of he will beat the main eventer, and just a huge success story, I think, in terms of AEW's ability to properly book, fringe characters. And really, because I mean, I liked the whole reign and just sort of like the lackadaisical thing of like, I don't give a shit, I'll just defend it, right? And then that sort of turns into like this inescapable cycle though, where like okay, I don't care, I'll do it, turns into like almost an apathy of like, I gotta keep fighting, I guess. And then the final thing of like, I'm Orange Cassidy and I don't have a catchphrase. And it was like this whole reign gave him what he needed to main event a pay-per-view. And for him to say that he cared, that was like that was the go home show, right? And it's like the title finally instilled in him like care. And I think that's just a really beautiful story. And they tied it up so well. So yeah, 4 3/4. I'm excited to go back and watch this one, honestly, as well. But just like, this was some of my favorite storytelling in wrestling recently. Like, this is probably my favorite title reign since Go's like Noah reign. Yeah. Back in like 2020. And we all know how that shit ended. And this was a much better ending.
Oh yeah, it was still beautiful. Like the ending of this was so beautiful compared to the Go reign, obviously, which was a fantastic title reign. But the ending, this one blew it out of the water.
Sorry to interrupt, but like real quick, one more thing is Moxley winning. Like I always thought or felt like it had to be a new guy, right? Like I always thought it was going to be a Wheeler or another guy like that, or your Roosh, right? Yeah. And I think like the fact that Moxley beat OC is almost like the best case scenario. He's your most decorated world champion in AEW, and he beat him in the main event, which I think just absolutely shows that Orange made this into a world title. And I think the fact that Moxley's holding it now really solidified how much OC had pushed this, because, let's say a Takeshita or a Starks or someone who's really great, right? But if they win it, it's still going to feel like a mid-card title. But because
they're not,
exactly. And I think that like it's almost like, not only did OC's storyline here, like this chapter was beautifully capped off and really sets the foundation for an even more exciting future. It puts another wrinkle in Moxley's insanely illustrious 4-year, reign so far in AEW. And if anything, though, like the title benefited the most from this. Like are there any other matches you can think of where a title was elevated this much to the next level? Where I'm like, shit, this almost got the Bret Austin rub. It was the AEW International title.
Yeah, this is a main event title now. And I can't really remember a case like that. I think they're on a good path with Gunther. It's just the way the company works. It's very hard with Roman Reigns being so overshadowing stuff with the bloodline in terms of their attention. And past that, I guess perhaps the only thing I think of as bringing up Japan again, since you brought that up, was when Nakamura and Tanahashi main evented the Dome with the Intercontinental title.
Yes, totally. The IC belt. Yeah.
Yeah, that's about the last time. And that was 9 years ago at this point. So it's very hard to do, and they successfully accomplished it. Great point on your part. And like I said, it's a very minor critique that I made. I totally have no issue with this at all. I'm not even saying they were wrong at the end. And what you said is totally true. To have it be succeeded by a main eventer almost helps the title more than OC winning. Yeah. And we can, I agree with that, actually. Like, now that you brought that up, when you say it that way, I agree. It helped the title. I was thinking more of OC himself, but the title, maybe that might be the better thing in the long run. So Tony Khan might have outsmarted me at the end there, and you might be right after all. So I kind of agree with what you said, but damn, what a great show this was. Like, look at these 3 matches we talked about, and it's so much going on. So much fun stuff, so much stuff that sets stuff up for the future. The build still sucked, and I stand by it. Like, I don't like the idea that, like, I couldn't believe when I was seeing some of the comments, like when John Silver was on there that was like, oh, make more money so you can order our shows. I was like, what an idiot. Like, seriously, what an idiot. Like, in all honesty, and I've been a fan of his in the past, but totally irresponsible, and Tony Khan should have put a stop to that, in my opinion, or they should have at least had a babyface defend the fan that he was going against that. You can't say that like nowadays. I just thought it was so stupid. And the build-up is what it was, but the match quality was also what it was, which was an absolutely spectacular show where everybody put their best foot forward. And what to bring it back to what you said, I think you could easily make the case this was the best AEW pay-per-view in terms of pure in-ring work. And I think, in my opinion, a significant upgrade over the bigger show that happened a week ago. I thought this was a much better show, top to bottom.
Yeah, I mean, even with my gripes with the opening, the angle was really great, and that was what it existed for. So
and
even
it was
with
the
that,
opening, not the main event like it was on the show before.
Yep. And yeah, I mean, really, my complaints with the show are very minor. Yeah, like I said, I genuinely think this was probably my favorite AEW pay-per-view to date. And, you know, they're having it feels like they're starting to hit a stride again, you know, and I'm really excited for Wrestle Dream. It looks like we could get, you know, Joe and MJF.
Yep.
You know, whoever Moxley faces is probably going to be pretty exciting. Naito would be fucking awesome. I don't know. This show got me excited again. Like, I'm actually going to watch. I'm fucking so stoked to watch Collision tonight. I'm going to put it on while I work, and I'm just like hyped. I've never been excited to watch Collision ever. So yeah, like the best feeling after a show is to be excited for the future, right? It's like any match, you should want to see it again. And I'm really excited for Wrestle Dream. Again, AEW, if they're going to start doing more pay-per-views, I would really love monthly pay-per-views, especially because I think that they've put themselves in a position now where they can have different titles main event the pay-per-views and not have it feel like, oh, well, they just didn't have a match that was strong enough to main event or whatever, right? Like, it wasn't just a forced world title main event. It's like, no, they have other titles that are on this level now. Yeah, and Phil Brooks is gone. Good riddance. Ha ha ha, Phil, stay away from me. You're cancer.
You love doing that voice, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
And he was right. He was totally right. But one more thing I will talk about real quick before we get to that, just really fast. This tournament, speaking of gripes, because I do what you said about the Wrestle Dream show, but the tournament they set up was just a joke. Like, it made them look bad. Why didn't they just make Joe the number one contender if they were going to do this? And you could do all these matches, but when you tell me, you look me in the eye as a viewer of this show, as a fan of this company, as somebody who wants this company to succeed and be as big as WWE, wants you to have 80,000 seat shows. You're telling me you give us Vic Wayne, Trent Beretta, Jeff Hardy, Jay Lethal? What? How are these guys ahead of Takeshita and Omega and so many people that won on this show? It makes no sense. This tournament is stupid. And I like the idea. I like the final potential, whether it's Joe versus Darby or Joe versus Roderick. Either one. It'll probably be Roderick, just based on the storyline. But I love either one of those matches. Darby and Roderick are two of the best workers they have. Joe is an absolutely fantastic character. I thought his promo was awesome that he cut on MJF. But the tournament itself, why couldn't we have just had a normal tournament? Are you that afraid to have people lose that you can't just do something semi-realistic?
No, and something that could have, I don't know, and again, this is just total bullshit fantasy booking, but, have Joe versus MJF be the clear trajectory for Wrestle Dream from the get-go.
Yeah.
It seems like the finals are going to be Roddy versus Joe because you have both storylines heading towards MJF, right? For me, like Roddy MJF is an exciting match. It's like a perfect main event for like a, kind of like a branded TV show, right? Like a St. Patrick's Day Slam or some shit. We're going to have a big gap in between Wrestle Dream and Full Gear. So you could do that Roddy thing and then maybe build back to, I don't know, whatever. But that's all to say, I feel like this, if the Eliminator tournament concluded at Wrestle Dream, you would have a lot more. Because like the last one, remember, it was like what? Danielson versus Moxley in the finals, or like Danielson versus Miro. It was like these used to be booked way crazier. And this definitely just felt very slapped together. Like Darby and Nick Wayne, cool match. Like it felt like they maybe needed to do it, but also why is Nick Wayne in this? And just, I guess, Dynamite in general, love the Starks. Really, really loved the Starks promo.
That was a great promo, yeah.
I thought Aussie Open should have won. You could have done the Guevara and Jericho. The angle exactly the same, if not better, from that. And I thought Moxley and Fox was fun. Statlander and Sakura, great little sprint, super hard hitting. None of the matches.
A TV.
Yes, dude, I'm really happy. Like I, still could have had more than one match on here, absolutely, and more segments, but. I wouldn't say any of the matches were necessarily bad. I think some of them were certainly lacking in meaning and purpose. But yeah, overall, like it kept my interest going forward through the going forward. I'm actually going to probably watch Rampage too. And I thought it was interesting because they definitely put the more interesting matches on Rampage to me for the first round. Like Hardy and Joe is, albeit like, yes, it's Jeff fucking Hardy. Like,
Yeah.
I am still a Hardy mark forever. He was one of my favorites growing up, and I would love to see him have good. And I don't good or not yet, but that's an equal match. And then it was Lethal versus who?
Penta.
And see, like that's a pretty good match too. So I like that the tournament, the competitors are not good, but the fact that they put those matches on Rampage at least made the tournament feel important and made Rampage feel important because they're still struggling to do that as well. So I liked that structure at the very least. But yeah, I don't know who won on Rampage yet, but I'm hoping. Yeah, I'm hoping, we should probably get either way, whoever Joe's going to face, I'm going to say will be fun, and Darby and Roddy should be pretty fun as well. So pretty shitty first round ones. It's like when they do the New Japan Cup, right? But then Yujiro somehow beats someone. It's like, God damn it, there goes my bracket. But yeah, it's could have been much better. I totally agree. What are you looking forward to, I guess, before I don't know. What else? Anything else we have?
They're doing the Outcast storyline with the women's title. I would like to see Tony get more of a push out of that. I think that's good. Totally agree with you about Ricky Starks. The promo was great. I like that we're done with this faux brand split so far. We're seeing people cross back and forth a little bit more. Mm-hmm. But my problem with the tournament is, like, you named all of these guys. Literally all 7 or 8 of them were more deserving than Jay Lethal being in this tournament. And nothing against Jay as a wrestler or anything, but it's like you had all of these other options that you didn't want them in the tournament because you didn't want them to take a loss. That's why they weren't in. Where's Takeshita?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, on Takeshita. I really, really like the masterpiece reveal concept. Yeah. It's like the only thing I've enjoyed about Callis and Takeshita so far. Like the the intent behind making an entire painting of who you're going to beat the shit out of next is so like maniacal and evil in like a way that I feel like we don't get a lot. It's very unique. I took like, yes, Takeshita should be going for the title. And that makes sense with his win from Omega, but I don't know. That masterpiece thing made me a little more interested because it feels like Takeshita is starting to like clean up, Callus's past or whatever. So I'm a little more interested to see what happens now. But yeah, they could have been way better people. Like no Danielson, no nothing. And then too, like a lot of the competitors have lost recently, so not big stock. Darby lost on the fucking pay-per-view.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like there's no logic. Like that's my only problem with it. It's nothing against the competitors themselves. It's just the logic behind it sucks so much. And it makes the company look bad, in my opinion. Just like that Chinese food segment they had with MJF and Cole a few weeks ago. But it's still good. And Takeshita, who do you think the masterpiece will be? Like, who do you think they're going to go after? My hope, this is dream booking, Miro.
Ooh.
I don't know why. It makes no sense, but I don't care. I want to see Miro and Takeshita wrestle.
I mean, if they're connected to Callus,
that's true. Who has stories with Callus?
I can't really think of anyone outside of like, I mean, it also seems like he's trying to court Aussie Open into his family. Like I think having more people in addition to Takeshita could certainly help Takeshita in that position, because it would at least give like a hierarchy to the group where Takeshita can be slotted as a number one, right? So it's more of like a Blackpool Combat Club and less of a Takeshita's being managed by this dude, because it's more like Andre Bobby Heenan or whatever. But yeah, I like in terms of Callus, I really have no clue. Like when they said it, I was trying to think who it could be and like trying to factor in, well, who's not in a feud right now. And my first thought, my thought would be Danielson, because he beat Takeshita earlier in the year. And I don't know, maybe Callus doesn't like him and it would be really cool. But that would be my hope, I guess, is Danielson selfishly, if he doesn't continue with Starks.
I'd be down for that. I mean, that's the best. That's honestly the best option, like in-ring wise, is Brian. My fear is it'll be Jericho, and he wants him to finish the job, and I hope that's not it, because they already did that with the painting. So hopefully it'll be somebody else. But yeah, it's an interesting little angle. I agree with that. Whoever it is, it gives a good setup. And I would like to see if they're going to continue the family. I do wish, again, similar to what I said about Luchasaurus and Christian, I'd like to see some motivation from Takeshita given. Why are you with Callus? Like, why do you want to be with him? What are your goals? Give us some depth to your character other than, Callus is in this feud and Takeshita is his in-ring hand, so to speak.
Yeah, like for me, my rule is kind of, I will give it 3 weeks, and if after 3 weeks, if on the 4th week it doesn't hit a stride, then I'm like, okay, this truly sucks. So they've sort of pulled me back in with this, but I agree. Like they need, now that they've moved past Omega, they need to start adding layers.
I agree. So we're hyped for AEW though. It was a great pay-per-view, great show, and they've set up some interesting things. I'm still not fully sold on MJF and Cole as a main event program. And I mean, there's a lot behind the scenes that are up in the air. Like there's a lot to talk about, but we will just kind of quickly end this, because this is your moment now, Nello. Your chance for a victory dance. Because as we've said, as has been mentioned before the show, he was fired. CM Punk, ding dong, the bitch is dead. CM Punk is out of here. And he will never be seen again in AEW unless there's some kind of lawsuit that he wins coming out of it, which seems very much impossible considering the fact that there's allegedly video of this, of what happened. So it's going to be very, very hard for him to escape out of this time. But Punk, I mean, there's been so much that's happened even in the week since he's gotten fired. As we're recording this, so many different layers and ins and outs of media implosions. I think the wrestling media at large have just totally bungled everything about this whole thing, top to bottom. Like, nobody is innocent or perfect, I feel like, in the coverage of all of this. But it came out. I mean, you saw Sean Ross Sapp on Twitter. Punk has been giving information to all of these media guys going on here, and which we all do anyway. If you paid attention to certain people out there, certain sources, I'm not going to name all of them, but basically there were a lot of people that Punk and his friends were trying to manipulate, more or less, to manipulate these stories out there, including claiming the other side was trying to manipulate the media as well, which is the kind of tricks you would expect from somebody like CM Punk. I've always said, Punk, he's a dick, but he's a smart dick. This guy is a master manipulator in so many ways, and was able to rile up his fan base so much, because there's a lot of people that just love him and will defend everything he does, up to and including potentially attacking the owner of the company physically out there, which we came out with. And we weren't there. I don't want to say anything definitively. The reports are that he made a move on Tony Khan after the backstage stuff with Jungle Boy, which we spoke on the last episode with Jack Perry, excuse me. We spoke on that, but it came out that he also lunged at Tony Khan, and Tony Khan came out on Collision right before AEW All Out, rather. He came in on the show and made a statement, and it's exactly what we talked about last week, Nello. What we thought he wouldn't do, actually, because he didn't do it before a year ago. He should have done it. I want to say this before we get to Punk himself. I was so impressed with how Tony Khan handled that situation. You finally made a move as a leader. He got right in front. Because he easily could have just said nothing, tried to convince people that Punk was going to show up on All Out. He didn't do it. He announced it right away. He's been fired. And I thought it was a very bold and the right decision. I thought that was the first time, because a lot of this I actually blame on him for the Punk even, but I thought this was the first time that Tony Khan showed good leadership. What do you think?
It was a very definitive and much needed conclusion to this very frustrating and just grossly repetitive chapter in AEW's very short tenure still, all things considered.
Good point.
I'm so happy. I could not be more fucking happy that he is gone. And I think that this is going to be, a moment for AEW to really signal what their new, sort of mission is going forward, right? Because if we still get a whole bunch of backstage shit happening and these people, whatever, it's like, okay, there is like something, systematically wrong in this, right? Like when it was just all sorts of shit happening all the time, and then it felt like it kind of chilled out. And then when Punk came in, shit blew up, right? So with Punk gone, I just hope that we hear way less, because if anything, this is sort of made me realize how little we hear about WWE in these aspects as well. Like when we hear about WWE, it's far more in relation to management than like actual backstage stuff involving wrestlers most of the time. Whereas with this, it's like, an unfortunate conflation of both. And it can, really poison the well, and also just like hurt the momentum, as we've seen so many times. So they have this really good feeling right now. I didn't think it was the greatest post-show Dynamite. Like, it was very promo heavy. Again, tournament could have been better, but I'm very excited for the future. Like I said, I read the statement at the party we had on Saturday. When I did my little wrestling mixtape party, I was like, everyone, I read it. And people were fucking stoked, man. It really is a ding dong, the witch is dead moment. And yeah, I think, not only Jack Perry stuff aside, we talked about the airport situation and all that. And I think it just showed how manipulative Punk can be and how he was trying to get his word out there first. and how, you know, essentially like you see the person through the bullshit, and, you know, a lot of things were affirmed. And it was kind of beautiful that the night, the first pay-per-view in Chicago, the day after CM Punk gets fired, opens with Adam Page winning a charity battle royale and donating $50,000 to teenagers in Chicago. And I was like, God damn, they really made Hangman the new hero of Chicago the day after they fired Punk. That's justice, if anything.
I will say this. Again, for as much as we have clearly stated are not big fans of Punk position, to say the least, there was other blame to go around. Again, I really think what we saw on Saturday should have happened 1 year ago, in my opinion. That would have avoided all of this trouble. He should have been gone, and that you would have just executed this whole thing. They fired Ace Steel afterwards as well, once again. You know, it came out. So they should have done this a year ago. At that point, to me, if I was running the company, and I hate to do that because I'm not running the company. Tony Khan did, and I give him a lot of credit for what he just did the past weekend. But if I were there that night, the next night, I would have had everybody, I would have forced them to get together, and I would have said, look, either we are going to make an angle out of this, and we're all going to work together, period, end of discussion. If you are in this company, you are willing to work with whoever the hell I tell you to work with because I am the owner, or you will be fired. And that would be my offer to every single one of them. And if they didn't want to do it, they would be gone. Like, that would be the end of it. And then the next week, you would have Colt Cabana addressing CM Punk on Dynamite after that promo, and we will go from there. Whether you like it or not, Punk, this is what's going to happen. You have screwed up so bad in so many ways, hurt feelings, ruined the locker room, caused problems, fractured everything. You are going to do what you need to do to make things right, and then we will all move on, and maybe we can all laugh about this in a year. Or you fire them. Like, those are your only options. Either make them work together and make money with this, which you could have done if they had any sense, or you fire him. Either one's fine. If you had been justified, like I said, that's what he should have done. He should have fired him before all of this happened. But it took a while, and we do have to say we don't know because it has been stated how much WWB wants CM Punk for Collision. And allegedly it's been said $50 million was paid to the company for that. And if that's true, then I guess all this drama was probably worth it from a capitalist sense. But what about the damage you did to your locker room, your fan base? Because now you still got a fractured fan base on this. There's still people who love CM Punk so much and will believe everything about him and take his side no matter what. When in reality, there is enough blame to go around. The Young Bucks doing a victory dance on Saturday, I didn't really like that. I thought it was unnecessary. It made them look so petty and bad that, you know, you didn't need to do that. Like, let's just move on from all of this. Like you said, Dark Cloud, it's gone now. You fired him. Let it be gone. Like, there shouldn't be any more CM Punk nonsense in this company. Not for his sake, but for the fans' sake and for the locker room's sake, in my opinion. And that's something I hope we see. I don't want this lingering on for another month or two where people have to make veiled references and things like that. Just let it go, man. You know, he's gone now. We're never going to see him again in all likelihood. And that just needs to be how it needs to be. That's how I would like to see it. And I think he was antagonized at points, but he was his own enemy that caused it. If he had not done what he did in the first place, I think he would have been a lot more respected. I think there's a lot of people, you included, you loved him when he came in, when he made his debut. You said it yourself. You cried when he came in, and a lot of people feel that way. He is the one that drove his own fan base insane with his actions. So to me, he is at the top of the list, but there is other people to blame as well, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Great point, honestly. As much as I shit on Punk, you know, he was probably the unhealthiest symptom of a root cause, which was a lack of proper management by Khan, as you had said. Yeah. So the thing, though, is that fortunately, by doing this, Khan addressed the root as well, right?
I agree.
And I think that that's about the best outcome you can hope for. So, yeah.
And I said this on Wrestle Update Twitter. For all of what I just said, we can't change the past. We can't go back and make it to where he fired him a year ago like we think he should have. For that exact moment, Saturday in 2023, he did the right thing. And I was very impressed. I really have to give him my kudos because I didn't think he was going to do it. I thought that he was going to get away with this again, and we were going to be talking about the next CM Punk blow up another month or two from now when he came back. And because that's what would have happened. If he had came back, if it wasn't Jack Perry, if it wasn't the Young Bucks, it would be someone else. It's like he is who he is, who he's always been. And he's not going to change in his 40s. And look, and that's why a lot of people in WWE don't want him there. You talked about Seth Rollins. Roman Reigns hates his guts. We know the history with him and Triple H. Who is there to really back bringing him in? It's been said there were some fans that even messaged me saying, Fox, bring him in for a short-term deal. Get what you can out of him. But that's just not going to work, man. I'm not buying it. I think the best thing for him is he's going to tear up any locker room he's a part of, even if it's healthy before, let alone if it's a WWE locker room with so much. Like you said, the wrestlers come across pretty normal and nice, but not a great situation with the management. Who knows what he'll do next? But regardless, he seems to be out of the way. One thing I want to say, too, before we get out of here, I noticed in the statement you brought up, I want to read a very specific part here. It's the very first thing you said. AEW has terminated the wrestler and employment agreements between Phillip Brooks and AEW with cause effective immediately. He's terminated the wrestler and employment agreements. So that tells you he had some kind of role front office wise. He was an employee of this company, not as an independent contractor, which their wrestlers are under. They said it in their own statement. So what was his role? What power did he give him? More than maybe we even knew, and we already knew that he gave him power. That's very interesting to me, that he was under some kind of front office power. He had some kind of power that we didn't know about, and we still don't know about because it wasn't listed. But it says right here, an employment contract in addition to wrestler. I wonder what that was.
Just fucking bouncer of Collision.
He was just a bouncer.
Right outside with his arms crossed, just puffy face. What? You can't come here, question for Daniels.
You want to take it outside?
No, but yeah, it seems like definitely creative in some way, or I imagine show direction, some sort of thing for Collision.
Yeah, you're probably right. It's just a Collision deal. But that's something nobody talked about, or nobody that I saw anyway picked up on, and I noticed that in the statement. And I think it's worth mentioning that there's something more to this that we don't know about. And maybe that is also maybe an explanation. Maybe he had this all the way back then. Remember Brawl Out or whatever, he said, I'm running a business here. And that's something to think about. Was he a part of management even deeper than we know about? And maybe that's why Tony Khan was so hesitant to help him, or so hesitant to fire him, excuse me. And, I feel bad for Tony in a lot of ways, even though it was a lot of his own doing for his poor management. But, for him to do that on Saturday, again, I think you have to really praise him. The last thing he wanted to do was fire CM Punk, ever. I mean, this man was his favorite, some sort of hero. I mean, can you imagine being in his position? Obviously, we're not, but whoever your favorite wrestler is, can you imagine seeing what a complete prick he is and needing to fire him, but you love him and you don't want to fire him? How crazy is that?
Yeah, for the Eastern Lariat fans, CM Punk is to Tony Khan as Keiji Muto is to Nosawa. Pretty fucking much.
That is true, but he did support trans rights instead of saying homophobic stuff like Keiji Muto in the match versus Nakamura.
That's true.
So that is one thing Punk does have, I guess, on him. But it's, like I said, I think we said all we could say on him, and it's a good time. I'm so glad we got to do the show and get through it. it's so cool to have you on again. I can't wait to do the next episode. The next episode is going to be a special one too, so keep your eyes peeled for that. No big shows for the next few weeks, but we're still going to be doing some stuff on Wrestle Update. We're going to get you episodes pretty much every week, maybe a little bit after, depending on what happens. But looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. And Nello, the people, they need to know what you got to say. Anything you want to say, you have the spotlight right now.
Okay, so first off, I want to start giving like an indie match of the week to check out, either on Fight, IWTV, whatever, US based stuff, Canada, anything. So this week, check out Matt Tremont versus Malcolm Monroe III from ICW No Holds Barred, Volume 51. Match takes place in Malcolm's hometown of Detroit. His family is ringside. Like, his children are ringside for this death match chanting his name. It's fucking crazy. He comes out with them. It's really cool. And it is like Tremont, we had discussed him and Jack, right? Very unique performer, and he can still go. Like, those Kobayashi style matches where you're like, damn, he's still got it, even though he can't do as much. And Malcolm Monroe III gives the performance of his life here, just trying to do anything he can to stop Tremont. Tons of glass. If you're a deathmatch fan, this is like pretty much I would give it like a solid 4 stars. And then I just wanted to shout out my little brother Tino, who's on vacation right now. Let him know it took me 2.5 hours to beat Baltius in Armored Core 6. But I just kept learning and I didn't give up. And follow me on Twitter for as long as I'm on there still at Aniello with five O's, I think, or 3. Anyway, that's it for me. What are you jumping on
the Instagram?
Oh, my Instagram is aniello.space. And that's also my personal website, aniello.space. You can see all my favorite films, video games, albums, wrestling throughout time.
Listen, we're going on to the Instagram escape sooner rather than later. And aniello.space. You're crossing new frontiers. You got your own website. We're running some blue sky stuff on there. Whenever that blows up, we're going to be all over the place. Twitter and X cannot contain us whatsoever. But also shout out to Tino as well out there. Big love.
Big love, Tino.
But yeah, like I said, follow the show account on X as well. Wrestle Update 23. The name of the show plus the name of the year. What a fun time it's been on there. Really gotten my mojo back on the social media game. We may end up doing a Wrestle Update Instagram account on top of it. Since you're there already too. Since you've beaten me up already, you've gotten there. You've done some great things on there. Really appreciate the shout out and the love to the family, the wrestlers, the indie wrestling going on. Check out that match too on ICW. It's going to be a lot of fun coming up on Wrestle Update. It's been a hell of a time and love that we're in this together. So thank you so much, Nello, for being on once again.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you, the listeners, for always tuning in. Give us support. Check out our YouTube page at Wrestle Update. Subscribe, like, all that stuff. Have some fun. Let us know what you think about any of the wrestling going on in America or anywhere. Indies, AEW, WWE, anywhere you want. It's all good. But we'll always be back, and keep your eyes peeled and your ears open for the next episode. And until then, this has been your Wrestle Update.